Good morning and welcome everyone to the Administrator Issues and Updates on November 12th, 2025. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please call the roll for us?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Roll call. Commissioner West.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Helm.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Chair Roberts.
Here. And thank you, Gary. Would you please introduce our first agenda item for us?
Yes, first item is to review this is a request for consent agenda that is somewhat changed, so we bring it to you first to get your questions before we put it on the consent agenda. This is from the Sheriff's Office, approval of a governmental contracting addendum with Axon Enterprise for law enforcement equipment and software. Contract value is $21,082,868.72 for 10 years. Funding is through the Sheriff's Office Public Safety Levy. No county general funds are involved. Under Sheriff Jesse Ashby and Patrick Williams, Finance Manager from the Sheriff's Office, will do a quick presentation. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Roberts, Board of County Commissioners, County Administrator Schmidt. Like you said, I'm Jesse Ashby. I'm an undersheriff, and this is.
I'm Patrick Williams. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Board.
We are here today to respectfully request a renewal and consideration of our office's contract with Axon, the county's provider of body-worn cameras and related software. In addition to body-worn cameras, Axon also provides in-car and interview room cameras, systems, and video storage, tasers, and video redaction software. This program is fully funded by the Sheriff's Public Safety Operating Levy, and the contract includes a termination clause allowing the county to end the agreement with 30 days' notice in the event that funding, appropriations, or other expenditures authority are not received as determined solely by the county. After evaluating alternatives, we are requesting the contract renewal for 10 years. This request will keep the price stable for a long term and keep us up to date with technology and enhancements continue to evolve. Securing long-term contract ensures consistent and stable pricing and mitigates future risk from even larger price increases. Thank you for your consideration, and we're ready to answer your questions.
All right, Gary, go ahead.
Thank you. So Board Sheriff Brandenburg and I discussed this, and I fully support this effort. This actually saves money over the 10-year life of the contract by locking in prices for 10 years, which is much better than if we were to have a shorter-term contract. And as Undersheriff said, if for whatever reason, I'll say it, the public safety levy is not approved by voters, we could terminate the contract. So we are not committing future general funds to this effort. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Gary. Commissioner Savas. Savas is first, one
sorry.
second.
Yeah, sorry. No, go ahead, please.
So first question, I have a few, so be patient with me, please. So the back when the levy first passed and we were seeking this to be baked in the levy amount for the ask for the levy, and the body cam was estimated, what was that cost then, and what is that cost now?
Yeah.
My understanding is it's maybe it's just rumor, but my understanding is it's doubled since the initial estimate of what it was going to cost.
I don't have that exact number today, Commissioner Savas. As with all technology, suppliers' costs have increased substantially. I can get that answer for you, and I'm not, I don't have the answer of when. Obviously, the levy's been going on for several years. The body-worn camera program, perhaps not as long. And when, I think through the last renewal is when it was committed to pay for the body-worn camera program. But the exact increase in the, from then until now, I don't have that number. But I know, like I said, with all technology purchases, it's substantial, including Microsoft, VMware. Everything is going up by a lot.
Yeah, well, I realized, when I was in business, I had to keep up with technology. I remember buying my first computer, my first cell phone, and look at the cost of that, right? And now you look at it, and those costs have come down substantially because technology, and just knowing that the body cameras is a example technology that is employed by a lot of law enforcement agencies coast to coast. So there's thousands of these contracts probably or agreements. So, I mean, this company is relatively popular. I can't imagine what their activity is or their income levels are or whatnot. But I'm just really wondering if maybe in some areas that maybe some costs will be anticipated to go down actually. But I do like that there's an exit strategy to get out of the contract with 30 days notice. That gives me comfort. But again, my question is more around the lines of, again, can we, if the technology does advance to some degree and the pricing can go down, that's great. At the same token is that what was that amount? You can't answer that, I get that, but what that amount of what we predict the cost is going to be and how we bake that into the future levy ask, right? How much is it going to cost? How many cameras are there? And do we believe that the ask and the contract, the breadth of the contract, is adequate to meet the needs for all the officers for 10 years?
Yeah, so to answer your first question, I think approximately we have about 225 cameras. And then also all of the patrol cars have been fitted with the Axon dash cams as well. So we've gone away from, we used to have two systems that we were using, which was kind of frustrating, the integration between the two. So now all the cars are retro. And the 10 years, I think, it allows us to grow as an agency and also allows us to keep up with the technology. We don't know where like AI is going. Exxon's a big AI company. That's going to be governed by obviously legislative rules, the courts, but it sets us up to be in those positions if for example, they have a product called Draft One, which is a AI report writing system. A couple of agencies in this state are starting to use it, so they're going to start to anticipate the litigation that will go on with it. But those agencies are starting to report like a 30% and 40% reduction in time spent writing reports. For the officers. And so, again, there's a lot of things that we have to get through with the courts and the legislature, but those are the things that we want to set ourselves up for to be successful in the next 10 years.
Okay, so you mentioned that there's 220 of these cameras?
Roughly speaking, yeah.
Now, that's the body worn?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so there's 80 some odd patrol ideally, right? I mean, it's just throwing out numbers for staffing. So who else wears the body cameras besides the patrol folks?
So there's the patrol folks, but then all the contract cities are wearing them. So it's closer to like 130 of patrol people. Then all the detectives have them. The civil division has them, and the folks from the jail that do like EHD, electronic home detention, they also have them.
So there's no body worn inside the jail?
There's no body worn inside the jail.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Commissioner West.
Thank you, Commissioner Salvas. You got to one of my questions. Are you wearing a body cam right now,
I
Sheriff
am.
Ashby? Okay, that's what they look like. Is that the one we're talking about, the one you're wearing, modeling for us today?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you, for coming this morning. My question is, does this give us the flexibility? So we may be going out for, well, we are going to probably go out for a new levy. We are still not fully hired, and we have issues around that we've been working around budget-wise and being fully staffed. And does this give us the flexibility to only purchase what we need, and or are we purchasing a certain amount for 10 years? How does that work on, is this 21 million, that's the set amount and they just provide us what we need for that amount? Like, how do we, do sometimes we save money or spend more money based on how many deputies or law enforcement staff that we have that need this product?
Yes, sir, the second one.
The second one?
Yeah.
So it ebbs and flows based on what we need, and does that mean that price, is this an estimated price over 10 years?
Yeah, yes, roughly an estimated price.
Because 10 years is a long time.
Yes, sir.
So if it gets competitive and we find there's ABC company out there, so are we always able to shop? Does this give us the flexibility to shop? It says like we have 30 days to end the contract. So does this allow us to say, hey, technology's better, it's driven the price down, cameras are smaller, AI has made everything cheaper, and then because a lot's gonna, what we look back 10 years from now and see where we are today, it's gonna look vastly different, especially with AI. So can you talk to me a little bit more about our flexibility to pivot if we have to?
Sure. The 30-day clause is if we do not have the funding. But as with all other county contracts, we can opt out of it after 6 months. for any reason.
For any reason,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
So they don't, let's maybe their customer service has changed or something's happened in that company, we're not happy, then we can just say thanks, but we're moving on to a different company.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Are there a lot of companies that provide this type of service for law enforcement? Who is this company and are they large? Are they, are they well-known?
Yeah, so when tasers first came out, I don't know if you remember that, that was a brand, and then Taser evolved into now Axon. So they also provide the tasers. So they're located out of Arizona. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office uses them. Chicago Police Department uses them. So
Okay.
I would say that they are the premier product in this space.
Okay.
There are several agencies that I'm aware of that have you gone with maybe a little bit cheaper of a product and have abandoned that product and have switched to Axon because of how friendly it is and how well it works with the officers and the interface, our ability to share that information with county council, with the district attorney's office has all been worked through. So,
Okay, it's improved. So if it's that common, if we have to work with the state police or another agency out of state, does it make it a more seamless process to work on a case or an issue when we're using this company? I'm thinking in my field as a nurse, large hospital systems often use something called Epic for all of their medical information. And when another entity has Epic, it's like vastly easier to do patient care. I'm wondering in your field of work, this is that size of company where we're able to collaborate much easier. Will we find that?
yes, we do.
Okay.
And also what we benefit from, because agencies like Chicago and Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office have these contracts, they're really driving the kind of the technology and the ease of use of the product, so we don't have to be the guinea pig, so we get that benefit as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for explaining that to me.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Helm.
Thank you for this explanation. Is this a subscription? Like a lot of is it a subscription to have like the program? You know what I mean? Like an Arlo, like a Ring or something. So you have to like go and buy into it,
Like a software license.
the software business?
Yes, essentially, we don't own the software. We subscribe to the use of it.
You
yes.
subscribe to the use of it, right?
Yeah.
So my experience has been that the equipment typically goes down in price, but the software goes up in price drastically. And anyone who's had QuickBooks in the last few years, it used to be $300-400, and now it's close to $1,000 because of the upgrades and all the things that they keep doing. So those are where the prices typically I see increase. So yeah, I'm hoping we have an off-ramp if we need it in the future, and there is another option out there to find some savings, but
I was going to mention that the cameras are a very small part of the
Exactly.
cost. It's
They
the
are.
software and the scope of what the software does as far as maintaining, records, maintaining the videos, easy access to the videos. And I'm just scraping the surface. It's quite a software, and I think I would describe it as a majority of the cost of this. Yeah.
right, and it's evolving so quickly too, like with AI, right? So R&D is probably built into that cost too. So, interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments. And I think what's really important to recognize the value of this tool. It is incredible, and I think it's hard to quantify how valuable it is. Number one, they also have seen like a reduction in when people know they're on camera. People act a little bit different, and as well as sheriff's office staff. So, and it holds everybody accountable. And one of the big issues too that oftentimes can be forgotten is, just as an example, is if you're arresting somebody for a DUI, it's very clear and obvious on their camera. That oftentimes leads the prosecutors to say, hey, this is an easier case, more of a, or just the opposite. So it really has countless benefits. And the other huge benefit I always could see is that if there is litigation or concerns about issue, it is to play it back. Now, a lot of times you don't see everything as you might hope, but it definitely gives you a good perspective of the entire scene, whether it's a crime scene or not. So I just think it's an incredible tool. And all I can think of all the time, I see Tony back there, and what I always think is the data storage. I mean, off the charts, just imagine, 10 people showing up at one scene, all the cameras going, and And when I try and send a little video file to my daughter, I can't send it because it's too big, right? Well, this is beyond that. So you can see why it is expensive, and really making sure that we are utilizing a great company that's been around, Taser, as you know. So just want to thank you both. If there's no other questions, it looks like this will be on our November 13th business meeting consent agenda for final approval. Not seeing anything else. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Gary.
Thank you. Next, Community Health Council recruitment update. Last week, you asked a lot of questions about the Community Health Council, and Mary Rumbaugh, Director of Health, Housing, Human Services, wrote a memo and is here to update you and answer your questions. Go ahead, please, Mary.
Good morning, Chair Roberts and Commissioners. And I know you all absorbed your memo, but just in case, I want to highlight a couple of things. So the Health Centers Community Health Council does serve as a co-governing body, so both appointed by you all as the Board of County Commissioners, but is also a requirement of the Health Resources and Service Administration, or HRSA. So in addition to the information in the memo, I did want to specifically answer a couple of the questions that came up last week. Gary did a good job of clarifying some of the information, but I think just so that we're all cemented in the answers. So the first question was, do we put all of these appointments out to the public at the same time? Question about reappointing members too soon without going out for a full recruitment. This particular council is actually always in continuous recruitment, mainly because of the population, the patients that we're trying to actively recruit. It's a hard group of people to recruit because you need to be an active member, active patient within health centers. Other councils that are appointed by this board do recruitments at the point that they, terms are up for renewal, or, people resign and they need to follow their bylaws around the minimum number. So this council is a little unique in that it always has continuous recruitment happening. And as Gary had noted, and as we state in the memo, there are specific requirements around members being current patients of health centers. So actually through continuous recruitment, we actually get a lot of individuals who are not patients, who are interested in being part of the council, and we sort of have to hold those applications to balance the number of patients that we need to have. So again, we're always in full recruitment. When members' terms are up, but they're eligible to reapply, they do reapply, which is why you do see some of the applications for folks renewing terms. They don't have to go through the full recruitment in the sense of getting those interviews and things like that, but they do actually have to reapply. So that was your first question. The second question was really around the vacancies. So looking at the list, there are 6 vacancies with no special requirement. Is that right? What is the process, and are we actively recruiting for these positions? Why are we having trouble recruiting? And are we actively recruiting, or are we just trying to do the minimum of 9? So this council is required to have anywhere between 9, that's your minimum, up to 24. Our goal is actually 15 council members. That really gives us a nice balance of ensuring compliance to our HRSA requirements, and it's a manageable size. And to try to recruit the number of patients would be really, really challenging. So our sweet spot is 15. How we're really recruiting for our consumer members, again, is continuous, and it's really proactive. So we have flyers in our clinic, we have community spaces, we're engaging patients in our lunch and listens events that we host, and talking about their opportunity to get involved. And we're also encouraging our providers, if they're working with a patient, and this is somebody who's at a place in their own world where they want to have a giving back opportunity, we'll talk with them about, hey, we actually have this council. It'd be great to bring your advocacy and your perspective. So I think those, when we went back and watched, those were the 2 big questions. Unfortunately, Sarah Jacobson, our health centers director, was going to be joining me. She has a sick child at home, so you're stuck with me. But hopefully we were able to answer some of those questions, but happy to answer any more.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. This is an update only, and we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
And Gary?
Thank you. Next is indemnity for county employees certifying federal grant terms. Ryan Hammond, Assistant County Counsel from the County Counsel's Office, will present. And there was a memo in your packet. Go ahead, please, Ryan.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Recent changes in federal grant terms include broad and ambiguous terms related to gender, DEI, and immigration. There's concern and risk of individual liability for those employees who certified federal grant terms, even in good faith, under the False Claims Act or a similar false statement theory. This resolution carves out a narrow policy of indemnity for employees who are certifying federal grant terms, acting within the scope of their duties and in good faith, while also having the board's delegated authority. The indemnity is structured similar to the Oregon Tort Claims Act. So within the resolution itself, it specifies the parameters for the indemnity, as well as sort of the procedural aspects of it, to the extent that an employee does find themselves facing individual liability under the False Claims Act. They're to notify county counsel. County counsel dictates the defense. And the use of outside defense counsel, it specifies that this coverage does not extend to certifications that might be done knowingly, with knowing falsity or fraud. And it generally structures itself similar to the existing Oregon Tort Claims Act. That's pretty much the parameters of the resolution. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, as I'm reading the resolution, I'm just wondering how or where, maybe it's where, so maybe you can educate me here. Is it specific to, we understood this is going to be specific to a limited number of employees that have authority for these types of contracts? And how can someone read this and say, I'm an employee of the county, so I'm covered, right? And not assume that everyone in the county has that indemnity?
No, absolutely. And so part of it is that, so at the bottom of the first page of the resolution, there's a set of parameters. They're highlighted A, B, C, and then they continue on to the second page. But essentially, the employee has to be acting, number one, within the scope of their duties. So it's not, it's not within the scope of it's not within the scope of every employee's duties to sign these federal grant certifications. That's going to fall within the purview of our higher-up directors or department directors or division directors. The other thing is that they have to be operating under board delegated authority. So they have to have already presented the grant agreement or the grant application to the board and have to have received the authority to go ahead and move forward with that. And the other thing is that they have to be acting within good faith, meaning that they've done their job and investigated and determined that the county can certify to these terms. And it specifically excludes those situations where an employee might be certifying or not presenting all the information in a way that constitutes sort of willful neglect of their responsibilities or falsity or fraud. So it's very, very much narrowly tailored to those situations that have been brought before the board's aware of what's going on, and so to the extent that that employee faces any sort of liability, however unlikely that is, the county would step up and indemnify them, similar to how we indemnify employees under the Oregon Tort Claims Act.
Right, well, I think the language you use there, which is up towards the top, where, it says that federal grant terms under board delegated authority, it's there, right, those terms, and you just stated it's there, but it's not in the ABC, and again, you're the lawyer, I'm not, and again, from someone reading this, I wouldn't want someone to read this and assume that it's broader, even though it's in the title. Would there be any harm in having some redundant language in the ABCD somewheres in there?
Yeah, so the board delegated authority part is actually held within that first paragraph prior to A. So rather than highlighting it as a specific, carve out, it just generally, this is only applying to those situations where, you have board delegated authority. So it's the second to last sentence of that now therefore paragraph. It says that arises solely from the employee's act of executing a federal grant certification under board delegated authority, notwithstanding the above, the county obligations are conditioned upon, and then we lay out those further restrictions. I included that one right there in the body because that is sort of the baseline, right? We don't even get to consider whether or not this applies if you're not operating with board delegated authority, right? That is the precursor before we even get into a further evaluation of whether or not you are entitled to indemnification.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Commissioner West.
Thank you. Can you just identify practically what it means when we indemnify an employee? What would that scenario be? Because, you know, if this is a violation, if they violate federal law, how would a county indemnify them in that instance? And what does that look like? And can you maybe speak to other counties that have taken similar action? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll start with that last question first. There are other counties who have carved out something similar. Some counties actually have ordinances that have expanded the Oregon Tort Claims Act to apply just generally where an employee is operating with the authority of the county. Their actions will be indemnified or covered. Within this space, I should make clear, I think it is highly unlikely that an individual employee would ever face liability under the False Claims Act. Under the False Claims Act, part of what they're seeking is part of the funds that have been distributed. The individual certifying to these terms doesn't hold the funds. The county holds the funds. So if you're looking to recoup those funds, you're going to go after the county, not the individual. Now, that doesn't assure individuals who are putting their name on these certifications. It's still concerning given how broad and ambiguous these terms are. So, you know, I just want to make clear that the risk is highly unlikely. To the extent that an individual faced liability, what we would do is default to those terms of the Oregon Tort Claims Act, which provides a pretty good regulatory scheme. But essentially, we would step up and pay for their defense fees, whether that's hiring outside counsel or having county counsel's office internally represent them. That's a decision that would be made ultimately once this was brought to us. But either of those situations could occur. And then going forward, the county would cover the costs of those defense fees or would direct the county counsel's office to represent them through the course of the proceedings. And then ultimately, if we ended up in a situation where that employee was held liable, but we determined that they were acting in good faith within the scope of their duties and with board delegated authority, we would cover any potential liability that they might be facing. What that liability would look like, it's really difficult to predict because using the False Claims Act against an individual as opposed to the county entity that's receiving the funding would be a very odd choice to make. Frankly, it would be a very punitive thing to do. And so I'm not sure the extent of damages if we ended up in that situation where it was determined that they were at fault. But I should also say that generally when we're looking at these terms and we are certifying, it would be very difficult for the federal government to step in and say that we had made a false claim just on the basis that the terms themselves are so broad and ambiguous. The individual who's charging or trying to assert that we made a false claim has to prove that we did. And if the terms are kind of ethereal and mushy, it's difficult to kind of hammer down and point to, where we made a false representation.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for explaining that.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think we might be at a point for a motion.
I move we advance the resolution to the November 13th business meeting for final approval.
I'll second.
All right, Commissioner Helm has moved to advance the resolution to the November 13th business meeting for final approval. Commissioner West has seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Gary?
Thank you. So this will be on tomorrow's business meeting for you to actually take the final action. Thank you. Next, advisory board and commission appointments. Andrew, go ahead, please.
Mr. Chair, the Pedestrian and Bikeway Advisory Committee, staffed by the Department of Transportation and Development, currently has 8 openings due to term expirations. Public recruitment opened in January of 2025 and closed in June of 2025. Through this recruitment process, 8 applications were received and 8 are recommended for appointment. The recommendation is as follows: Jennifer Martinez, to a first term ending December 2030. Jim Schroeder to a first term ending December 2030. Sheila Shaw to a first term ending December 2030. Vanessa Daney Slagley to a first term ending December 2030. Steve Adams to a second term ending December 2030. Dick Weber to a fifth term ending December 2030. Del Scharfenberg to a sixth term ending December 2030. And Dale Gunther to an eighth term ending December 2030. The Board of County Commissioners could select other candidates or require further recruitment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions?
Chair, I move we appoint the slate of candidates for the terms, the aforementioned terms.
I will second.
All right. Commissioner Savis has moved to approve the appointment of Jennifer Martinez, Jim Schroeder, Sheila Shaw, Vanessa Dane Slagle, Dale Gunther, Dale Schuffenberg, Dick Weber, Steve Adams to the Pedestrian and Bikeway Advisory Committee, seconded by Commissioner West. Any further discussion? I would just like to make a quick comment and just say, it's just, once again, citizens stepping up to volunteer to help on, to me, an important issue on pedestrians and bikeways, and just thank you to all those that put in for this position and those that are coming back, so thank you. So with that being said, Clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Commissioner West. Aye. Commissioner Savis.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. And Gary, what's next?
Thank you. Next, review of your board business meeting agenda for tomorrow, Thursday, November 13th at 10 a.m. You will have public communication, a previously approved land use issue, which is the Recovery Campus land use action, a presentation on a business spotlight, this time Miles Fiberglass, 2 public hearings, both first readings of an ordinance amending the county code, one on noise control, the second on budget development, a consent agenda for the Board of County Commissioners, Clackamas County Extension and 4-H Service, and Water Environment Services. If you have any questions on any of these items on the agenda, please let me know prior to tomorrow and/or let me know so I may have staff in the room to answer your questions. Thank you. The final item today, Chair, is Commissioner Communications.
Thank you. I always get a turn to my right, Martha, the little Italian lady
I
here,
know.
so
Thank you
you're
for
on
that,
there.
Chair. Really, it's great to be here today. I do have some sad news. I wanted to mention this last week, but I had a dear friend, Daniel Frederick Hitchcock, who was a very close friend of mine, and he was a major general in the military, in the Guard. He passed away this last few weeks, and he was a wonderful man, and he really had 3 decades of military service. He began as an airborne ranger, and he rose to the rank of Major General, commanding the 104th Training Division with distinction. And even after the retirement, which is when I knew him, he continued to serve as an Army Reserve ambassador and ESGR board member for more than 2 decades, strengthening relationships between the military, employers, and the community. And so he supported soldiers, veterans, and their families. And I'm going to really miss him because he also had a degree in organizational management, and so he mentored a number of us who are in public service and have continued to be in public service about really how to be productive members of the larger organization. And it was a wonderful time I spent with him. He taught me a lot, and I think it was with his help that I hope I actually became a better commissioner. So I want to just give my regards to his family and how sorry we are that we have lost such a great soul, and may he rest in peace. So that's the sad news. The positive news that I have to talk about today, this last week, it was the 20th anniversary of the Pacific Northwest Defense Coalition. I mentioned that in the state of the county, largely because that was something that we incubated here when we first started our business outreach here in the county. And they're still going strong after all these years with all the traded sector businesses. And I'm proud of the fact that I'm considered one of the one of the founders with our close friend Shelley Perini, with Benchmade Knives. It's just around the corner from us, for example. You just mentioned Miles Fiberglass. They were also a part of this whole initiative. And it's a fantastic organization that is extremely business-friendly. And I think it started, like to think it started our positive reputation in this county for being open for business, making sure we have good tax structures, and welcoming them. So that was nice, because I didn't realize that 20 years could go by so quickly, actually. I thought the state of the county was great. It was a privilege to be with all of you on the stage. I'm personally glad it's over. I always find it somewhat nerve-wracking, and whether or not I can remember everything I'm supposed to remember during those things. So that was great. We had a stabilization center opening this week, which is kind of one of our milestones for helping people who have addictions. And we're going to be moving ahead with similar policies as we talk about our recovery center as well. Also had an opportunity to actually visit a business this week, Swaglock, and they are actually in the Milwaukee area, and they were pretty fantastic. They have really are part of our big manufacturing group that we have here in the county. That we have one of our sectors is advanced manufacturing, and they are a fantastic addition. They've been here for a while. They have places in the Midwest as well as Alaska, but we're proud to have them right here in our county as well. And thank you. I want to thank the folks, the staff this week too, because we did Green Light for Veterans last week. And that was something that I was hopeful that we could do, and I hope it becomes an annual thing for our veterans now every year. It's pretty easy to do. You just get some green light bulbs and put them in, and it gives people an opportunity to remember that our veterans are important to us, and they deserve our service for having served us in the military. And it was a great way, I think, to, honor Veterans Day this year. So that's all I've got, Chair, and thanks.
Thank you,
Okay.
Martha. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, yesterday was heading out to Malala for the Veterans Affair that put on by the former Mayor Mike Clark out in Malala. Always a great event. But I was on my way. I got stuck in traffic, and I think, oh my gosh, someone got hurt or killed. I was worried about it. And this plugging along, it's like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It's like, geez, it's taking a long time. I finally get up to the intersection of 213 and Beaver Creek Road, and come to find out it's a construction crew doing a saw cut. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I was there for half an hour waiting, and the line probably backed up all the way to probably Vancouver, BC. I'm exaggerating, but it was a long line. But I did make it there 15 minutes late. But again, just a great shout out to both, former Mayor Clark and his effort. He's a veteran himself and always puts on a very wholesome, great, one-of-a-kind veterans event. And Commissioner Helm joined in. She was in attendance, listening and seeing for the first one, so I think she has similar thoughts about that. I rushed out of there and headed over to the VFW, and as you all know, we commonly have our issues and work sessions on Tuesday, so therefore I'm not able to attend a lot of Tuesday meetings. So again, yesterday was kind of a holiday, but yet we weren't working, so I was able to attend a meeting I've been invited to go to over and over and over, and I can't because of conflicts, and that was the Kiwanis, and they were having it live there at the VFW 1324 in Oregon City. So it was nice to hang out with the folks there and see some of the members of the VFW. And, it's a solemn, somber kind of an event, for me, and it just brings back a lot of memories. And I also learned to, I'm not going to mention the person's name, but these things are constantly learning of more people that pass away that we've lost, and natural causes for the most part. But, we're getting on in our years, I'm finding out, and just more of us all the time. But, I think the got a lot of positive feedback in regards to the state of the county last week, so that was good. And looking forward to, I guess we have the AOC coming up next week. So we'll be busy. I'll be out next week at the AOC annual conference and hope to network with our other county commissioners that are battling similar fights and challenges that we all are. So look forward to that. And Chair, I'll stop there and yield back.
All right. Commissioner West.
Thank you. Happy Veterans Day to all our veterans again, and those who are actively serving in the armed services, thank you. My last couple days, I actually was a nurse. I worked yesterday at OHSU in cardiac, and then I worked in the PACU on Monday, helping people recover from surgery. And so today is a packed, busy day as we have a condensed week, so there's a lot going on. So we'll be back, I guess, in a little bit later this afternoon. We have our board team building, an additional, I don't know if that was already mentioned because I stepped out, but on Thursday, I think Martha and I this weekend are doing some stuff with Braver Angels. We're going to talk about how you can disagree without being disagreeable and how to work together in a bipartisan way and still break bread together and actually get to solving real solutions and problems and working hard to find the common ground and not the differences. And so, and just through that spirit, we've become dear friends.
Yeah, we
And
have.
so,
Looking forward to it.
yeah, we're looking forward. And the community is actually, I think, hungry for that kind of conversation to happen from its leaders, because sometimes it just gets real divisive. There's lots of bomb throwing, and we forget that we're, once again, all Oregonians into this together in Clackamas County, and no one else is going to come and solve these problems if we're not going to do it together. So I look forward to doing that this weekend and modeling that behavior and good spirit on Saturday. And then I think we're jumping off into AOC. Yeah, so it's a lot in a little bit of time. I don't think the rest of us are in all five of us are together going into the holidays until next year after this week. But we'll have quorums and still get work done. We'll still represent Clackamas and get the work done. But yeah, that's all I have to report. And one just last shout out to all of our veterans and those in the armed services. Thank you.
Commissioner Helm.
Thank you. So Thursday, I attended the Blossom and Community Soft Open House over in Milwaukee. Commissioner Savas was there as well. What an incredible, beautiful facility this is. I was so impressed with the brightness, the lightness, just the way they did everything just turned out absolutely gorgeous. And I'm very impressed with the way they did it. And I think the project is ongoing. There's more buildings to be done, but boy, they're on a really great path. So went from there to the C4 meeting out in Canby. Had a great presentation by the city of Canby. Mayor Hodson talked to us about land use and many other things. So thank you, Canby, for hosting. Friday morning, I was on a 2-hour Zoom for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project. And I will just say, as I go through this process, more red flags and alarm bells go off. In that there's a $380 million shortfall, and I think I brought this up with TriMet, and yet they're very gung-ho about going forward with a $350 million project for this new transit project along 82nd Avenue. And they say they haven't been in touch with a lot of the business owners along 82nd. They can't contact them, but in my experience, business owners are generally on site and easy to find, so I really encourage them to do more outreach. I think before we have a vote on this in January, which is when we'll be voting on the project, I would like to discuss more with this commission our feelings and what we think that should be happening. I have very strong opinions after I spoke and asked a couple questions. I did get some emails from people saying I was the only reasonable voice in the room because they're pretty determined to go forward with this regardless of their current financial situation. So that's very concerning. Monday, I went out and met with the city of Estacada. I met with the city manager, Melanie, and John Lagarza, their economic development director, and Elena in that department as well, along with Mayor Drinkwine. There's some huge opportunity out in Estacada with a number of acres available. And I'd like to sit down with Commissioner West on this because with the CLT plant that's gone out there, what they need, and they will need to recruit is the panel maker for that. And with the ONC lands, but all of that is symbiotic, right?
Yeah.
So there's just a huge opportunity there. Although what they wanted to talk to me about was a kind of a regional coalition on power and utilities and getting all the counties and cities together to talk about what do they need. Of course, they don't have Northwest Natural out there. It's a huge problem because some of their businesses are going to need natural gas.
They have no access to natural
gas.
gas?
No, they don't.
No.
It's been going on for a while.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I just see like a huge opportunity, and I'd like to help them in any way we can. Great listening session. And then, as Commissioner Savas mentioned, I did attend the Veterans Day program out in Malala yesterday, a very sweet and somber event. There was a lot of these darling teenage speakers who read poems. I think I only cried 4 times. It was just very heartwarming, heart-wrenching. Again, thank you to all who have served. It was a great experience. I did not want to speak. Like I said, it was my first time. Next year I'll feel more comfortable there. So, anyway, back to you, Chair.
All right. Thank you. I just, again, want to follow up on Martha, because I knew Major General Daniel Hitchcock, and we had gone back to Washington DC a few times together.
right. Yes.
So just Canby,
Yeah.
and really just very lucky to have him in our community. He will be missed. He really touched a lot of lives, and really sad to hear about his passing. I just had a couple quick comments. We've got a lot of other business to go over, but this was, again, wanting to echo my colleagues' sentiments for all appreciation for our veterans. I want to start with by thanking Commissioner West for his service. And I know he's serves a lot of weekends. He's gone a lot and juggles a lot of those balls up in the air, not keeping them any one of them from falling. So personal thanks for your service, Ben. One thing I want to shout out, and again, I feel like I think Diana Hellman and I were always talking about the business community, and I wanted to take a moment and share that there were so many businesses that offered free meals for veterans. I can't list them all, but I'll read off a few of them. IHOP, Applebee's, Buffalo Wild Wings, Chipotle's, Denny's, Firehouse Subs, McDonald's, Olive Garden, Qdoba, and many, many others that had free meals for our veterans. So my thanks to the business community out there for doing that. And as a former sheriff, I thought I'd close it with the last one, which was Krispy Kreme. So they also gave free donuts to our veterans. So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude Commissioner's comments, and we'll move to proceed with our first policy session of the day. So Gary, would you introduce that?
I will, Chair, thank you. Red Robin also gave free food out. Red Robin. And Great Clips gave free haircuts to veterans.
We went to California Kitchen.
California Pizza, or
Yep,
California
they
Kitchen,
have a
yes. All right.
veterans menu.
All right, we're starting, your first policy session today is short-term rentals, pilot program review, and update. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director, and Caroline Hill, Policy Advisor in the County Commissioner's Office, will present. It's been 2 years already, can you believe it? So this is an update on the pilot program, as well as I'm going to cut to the chase, seeking an extension, because we really need to do some full outreach with the public to see what they think about this, and we've not done that yet. But I'll let the staff give you those updates. Go ahead, please, Elizabeth and Caroline.
Okay. Good morning, Chair, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt, Caroline Hill from County Administration. And Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director.
Okay. We're here today to seek board direction on next steps for the short-term rental program. Short-term rentals is a growing industry that has the potential to increase tourism activity, but being that it is a relatively new concept, it also has the potential to create livability issues in the areas where they are operated. In response to growing concern, the BCC explored options for how to best address some of these issues while striving to be cost-effective for all involved. During the public engagement period, prior to establishing the SDR program, the board heard some common themes among the issues of most concern. Some of them are accountability for SDR operators, noise nuisance properties, proper disposal of garbage, appropriate collection of transient lodging tax, TLT. In September of '23, the BCC approved and established the SDR pilot program. The program was set to last 2 years, which is why we're here today. The pilot is set to expire on December 7th of this year. Today, staff respectfully request that the board approve a 4-month extension of the pilot. The 4 months will allow us to do robust public outreach engagement to learn from the community about their experiences with the program as it is currently operating. Once input is gathered, we will come back before you to determine whether adjustments are necessary. And we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, questions? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know if Ben had his up first. Sorry.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see Ben's.
We'll all get there.
Yeah, we'll all get there. Thank you. And this is another program I'm learning about, but I'm learning more about it by attending the CPO meetings because they have very strong opinions, as well they should. And I put in front of her, Caroline put in front of you a letter from the one I attended Saturday up at government camp. Boy, this was a very well-attended government camp CPO meeting. It was like there was 25 to 30 people there and another 15 online. And this gentleman I spoke to afterwards, Greg, sent a very thoughtful letter that brings up some concerns I think I would have if I were living in that community. And I spoke briefly with Commissioner Savas about this yesterday, that initially I kind of think there should have been a cap put on it. So if you take an entire residential neighborhood and you turn them all into STRs, it's no longer a residential neighborhood, it's a commercial business, right? So that changes the whole fabric of that community. They each, both Hoodland and the government camp CPOs have different issues. So I think an outreach on this, a town hall or something to kind of get a lot of public input is really, really necessary so we can find out what each community's issues are. And I think that's first and foremost is hearing from everybody. I think people are open to it. I think it's just if it's done the right way. And kudos to you people who put it together kind of, I guess, in the midst of some contention from what I hear, that this was, kind of something the previous board had thought about and threw their hands up and said, I don't want to do it anymore. Great, whatever. But I know some of you took it on, and thank you. And I think you did a great job. But again, it's just needing some tweaks. But I think you have to look at the overall, what this does to a residential community and how we can help the livability in these particular areas. So I know that I was bringing up in Tucson, like if you want to rent a home down there, it's a minimum 30-day rental. It's, that keeps all the 2 to 3 day stays, which is like where all the activities and the traffic and the noise. And I have a vacation place and people on either side of me are STRs, and it's party city. It's not what I think I would have intended, but I think we all need to think about these things, and I really want us to do something like a town hall out in Welch's or something where we can engage the community.
Thank you. Commissioner West.
Well, I have to give a huge thanks to Commissioner Savas and Commissioner Scholl when he sat on this board for tackling this in a very creative way, and a lot of work, and staff too put a lot of work into this. My priority, I think probably the board's priority, is I want to make sure that our constituents that have to live with this that their concerns are heard and mitigated. If you live up there, you raise your children up there, that's your community, that fabric that makes communities so special and unique. We want to make sure that those things are protected. You know, I like what you said, Commissioner Savas, that if it becomes largely commercial, then it's not really a neighborhood anymore, right? And, you know, it's different than a mom or a pop, and maybe this is part of their retirement income and they have one of these properties, but we have whole entire commercial entities just buying up blocks. And that is different. That is not necessarily what people who call the mountain their home want to see their community. I wouldn't want my community turned into that. I would have an issue with that if I was like one on a block and all of a sudden I'm surrounded by STRs. That would impact what I was like, I didn't buy into that. So that matters. And so I hope that we do look at that. I want to make sure that now that we've lived with this for 2 years, our constituents that lead, their feedback is so essential, and I hope they participate. I hope we hear from them. This was a great letter. I read the letter, Commissioner, and you know, he talks about some good ideas, and he's not antithetical or oppositional to understanding that there has to be some balance between the market and people living in their neighborhoods. So I appreciate that approach. But he talks a little bit even about, like, you know, what are the boundary conditions, you know, he brought up. And some of this we did talk about 2 years ago, and Commissioner Savas said this is the first bite at the apple. This has to be tweaked. And Commissioner Savas and the board, we did bring a lot of these issues up, realizing like we're here now. We're here to have that additional conversation, I believe. But I do also like the idea of a town hall. And I want to thank Greg for sending in this letter. I believe we've all read it, and thank you for this communication. It did, you know, make me think.
Yes.
It did make me understand how we need to craft policy. And so I don't know, I think we're going to get there. We're a pretty functional board. We get along really well. So with our community, we'll be able to strike that balance and try to make good policy at a local level. Yeah, those are my thoughts. And I'm excited to kind of see what the next, so would that bring us to March? So we're not counting this month, right? So it'd be December, January, February, end of March when we have a briefing in April, or what are we thinking?
I'm thinking April,
Okay.
because we're getting into the holidays right now.
Yeah.
So in order to really
So
give.
we're kind of thinking
the
January.
Yeah.
So January is month one, we go into April, and then are we in May for a briefing or
Something like that, yeah.
for a briefing? Okay.
So you'll extend it, I suggest April 30th, 2026. We'll come back
Okay.
to you in March to get your feedback.
Okay.
You wanna do.
I support that. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, first of all, just to make it clear, I too support the extension. And if you'll indulge me a little bit in the story, so that way, because as new people come in and move in, or new people on the board, or new staff, you know, I think the relevant history is important here. And for every idea or belief, I have found that there's an opposite one. So there's no clear agreement or win here whatsoever. This has been a long haul. Martha and I were here way back 7, 8 years ago when staff first brought it. My gosh, I mean, I know DTD staff especially threw their hands up and said, we're done with this, you know, because we couldn't move it. And Gary, the administration, knowing our financial constraints, you know, said, if you all can do it, and the board kind of agreed, if you all can do it without affecting general fund and stand on its own, then, you know, we'll entertain it. So here we are. It was a pilot. That was deliberate. We knew we would change it. We knew this wasn't going to hit all the issues or the challenges. And I guess operationally, Gary, you and I talked about this. Operationally, we've had a couple hiccups, right? And whether it's vendors or whatnot, and how we actually move forward on the operational aspects to take care of some of those bumps. But this was not. So here I go. I'm going to start into my indulge me. So we've heard for a long time. I've been up the mountain as well, not recently, but way back when this was a real hot item. And I've heard feedback. Still get feedback from people up on the mountain. What we learned was with all those public processes, it was not just the mountain, by the way. Surprisingly, a lot of it was actually in Oak Grove. I was kind of surprised by how many STRs were in Oak Grove. I had no idea. until, again, we had those conversations. So this is just not a mountain issue. This is across the county. You know, commonly you've heard code enforcement, and this was not clearly, there was no deliberate effort to enhance, or no funds to enhance code enforcement, because we knew that would be really expensive. And if I recall, way back when it was this first broached, staff came up with this proposition that it'd be $600 per rental unit annually, and staff's response was this probably wouldn't cover code enforcement for that, even at that rate. So this was on an affidavit process, and basically that a operator, owner-operator of an STR would fill out registration for free, essentially, that they would abide by all of these things and ensure that all these activities would take place, and that ultimately, if there was indeed something brought to our attention, and that's the mechanics I need to better understand on how or why not some of those things have not materialized, that it would eventually go to legal department to act on, you know, some shortcomings from what an operator signed on their affidavit. And I'm not gonna oversimplify it on purpose here because it's not simple, but we didn't eliminate code enforcement at all. So if anyone has a violation, whether you're an STR operator or you're not, anyone can file a code enforcement claim anywhere in Clackamas County. So that's still available. STRs are not excluded from that if they actually have a legitimate violation. So this affidavit we thought was a good way to start. The things like the cap were discussed indeed, and I think that deserves some merit for discussion, at least anyhow. But what I'm realizing now is that somehow operationally, we need to figure out why some of those from the affidavit standpoint have fallen through the cracks. And as I've heard from people, we know it's an STR, there's no sign out there. How come there's no sign? The sign's supposed to be out there. Is it supposed to be out there only when it's been rented, or is it out there all the time? So there are a lot of questions, but the main reason I really approve today, personally approve that we move forward with the pilot program, is to re-educate or educate folks on what this program was, and then find ways to tweak it. We knew it wasn't going to be perfect right out of the gate, so I have really an open mind, and I want to be able to, we listen to everyone, educate, and again, operationally, I'd like to have confidence as a member of the board here that internally or externally, or a combination of, how are some of these facilities operators falling through the cracks where maybe they're paying their taxes but they're not registered, or maybe they registered but they're not abiding by what's in the affidavit. I think I need to have a deeper dive into why some of those have fallen through the cracks. And I think that if we had maybe had I know we had some struggles, that maybe some of the vendors that we counted on for certain things maybe didn't fulfill fully, but we know it was a learning experience. I think we can tweak and make adjustments. I'm not going to give up on it. I think it's something we can build on and refine over time. But again, I'm not going to sit here and say it's perfect. We need to make some tweaks.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, and actually, one of the questions I'm wondering if we have the answer to, are we seeing folks buying homes up there, like in a commercial? I think what made me think about this was your comment, Diana, about it being a commercial endeavor. So are we seeing people who are buying, are we seeing people who are buying homes up there as kind of a commercial venture? In other words, do we have folks kind of doing it as a business and just buying up homes and then renting them? I don't know if we have the answer to that or not.
That's what we have been hearing from the public.
Okay.
Yes.
That basically, so they're not being purchased, so it's almost like a small business situation.
But there's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But yes, we have heard from the public that some big corporations are purchasing some homes for the sole purpose of operating as an STR.
Right. See, that is a different use that we have to take
It's an
into account.
investor, yeah.
Yeah, big time. So, okay, thank you.
Commissioner West.
I just think that this is applicable.
Yeah.
I mean, and in the letter from Greg, he talks about density limits, and I like how he words this. He says, specifically how homes might be reasonably be considered acceptable STRs per neighborhood. As an example, my neighborhood Loop, just the Loop, contains 19 homes, 10 of which, so more than half, are rented in some fashion. It seems more than reasonable to set density limits when considering SRT applications. And that's what we talk about. You are changing the absolute character of a local community when you do that. Some of those might be, I mean, full disclosure, my parents have an Airbnb STR type property, and it helps them fund their retirement, right? And they have one in Portland. So that's a different story than a conglomerate coming in that has no tie-in to the local community, and are difficult to reach an individual. And you're right, sometimes you're on a fun ski weekend and that's what it becomes a party weekend. I just know if it was my street, I would really care.
Okay.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, that is that be mindful that there are actually some good operators that are doing a good job.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're good neighbors and they're good actors. And so want to acknowledge that, you know, I don't want to lump everyone into, if you own an STR, it's a bad operation or it's got a super negative impact, other than maybe you don't have a neighbor there that you know day in and day out. So I acknowledge that. The way I've described this to people, the old saying is that, this is so complex, like peeling an onion. This is a very large onion.
With lots of tears.
Yeah, and a lot of pain and anguish. So again, attending and being in some folks' living rooms up in Welch's or up at the mountain, and hearing all this for all these years, I certainly understand a lot. And I don't know everything. I'm always anxious to learn. And we have a lot more examples. 2 years gone by, there was other models out there that have worked successfully. The coast is no exception to the same kind of a thing. And, I'm a friend of mine lives in Yachats, and I visited them on a weekend. And it was pretty busy on the weekend. But I was there for a couple more days, and it was like, God, on Monday and Tuesday, it's like a dead town, and all the activity stopped. So it was weird. It was a weird moment on Tuesday when I left after being there for 4 days, just to see that was an example of, again, a community that was dominated by STRs. So I get it.
Commissioner Hill.
And just one other thing, and maybe it was done before, is to involve the tourism department too in this, because I'm sure that you did, but I know that every state, every county, every city, there's different layers of STR regulations, and I'm not aware of all of them, obviously. I am only aware of some based on my own personal experience, and I love going to Airbnbs. When I travel, it's much nicer to stay in a home than in a hotel. Especially for any length of time. But again, I'm just kind of worried about what we're allowing in some of these communities, and I think the tourism department could certainly weigh in.
Yes, they were part of the discussion during the process. In fact, through tourism, the TDC provided the seed money to start the program. So that was very helpful for us.
Good.
Yeah.
Just a couple quick questions. That, I really believe what's important is really data, public input. And so my question really is kind of over this pilot project, is there a platform where folks can report complaints about issues that are going on? Do we have a system in place to make sure we're listening to the issues at hand?
We do. The program landed in finance, and maybe you can speak more to it, but we did hire out a vendor who helped us sort of comb the internet to find STRs, but also people can submit their complaint there, and then they, once a week, send an email to our finance department to say, you have so many complaints in our database, and then someone from finance then reaches out to the STR operator, letting them know the nature of that concern.
So we could probably get some sort of summary of what those were and take a look at those would be great,
Yep.
a big help.
We have those, that's public record, we have those. The complaints.
We,
Part of public record.
Elizabeth, please answer that.
We do have those. We have an Excel spreadsheet with summaries of each of the complaints available.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So I think it'd be great to kind of see if there's some consistent themes and issues that come forward, to take a look at that. I think that Commissioner Savas, I think he touched on this too, and I know you did some work early on this, or staff did, about looking at other models. And I think it's also a good opportunity to look. Council Williams has talked about Hood River, and they have like thousands of people that come visit, and maybe they've tweaked their system, Long Beach, and so I think it's important as we move forward is looking at best practices out there and helping evaluate those. The other issue that I have heard a lot of concerns in the area from residents in that, and I just think it's really important as we kind of move forward is being nimble to address those. And again, making sure we're hearing those and responding. So that's kind of a concern I have as we kind of move forward. And one last question is, I know you're asking for a 4-month extension. Is there a reason we didn't kind of look 4 months ago to kind of do that input before now? Was it staff? Why was that not? Sorry.
I'm not certain.
With tremendous respect to my amazing commissioners, this is not a strategic priority of yours, so it just didn't get done. So we need time now to do that. Thank you.
Okay. So I think moving forward, we can always improve. I mean, that's what we're all about. So I think, what we might set on as a goal for, I think it'd be great to bring this back every year to make sure we're kind of seeing where we're at. And then if we could have surveys done before before we come here, so we can have a discussion and making sure we're obviously open for public testimony and that stuff. So with that, I know Commissioner Savas had another comment.
Just a question for Gary. With regard to some of those operational hiccups, as I call them, if there's going to be a proposal maybe to how to ensure that the complaint actually results in follow-up, and then if there is actually something actionable that, the actionable piece is. So I think that's the part that some people felt that was code enforcement's job, which it wasn't. It was more of an operational standpoint. So I want to make sure that when we come to that point in time, we don't just have, here's the responses, but we also have solutions, answers and solutions to some of those shortcomings.
Absolutely, Commissioners. This is on page 2 of your staff report, and you have read it. The public can read it. But this program is not perfect as far as the administration. And right now, it's totally cost neutral, that the fees pay for the program. But to do everything I think you want it to do, it won't. So that either means you're going to raise the fees, or you're going to tell me to find other sources of funding. So that is something we'll bring back to you on all the options financially of how to enforce and implement all the things you expect of this program.
All right. I think with that being said, I think we're almost ready for a motion.
Yeah, I move we approve a 4-month extension of the short-term rental pilot program and direct staff to solicit robust community feedback.
Second.
Commissioner Helms moved to approve the 4-month extension of the STR pilot program and direct staff to solicit community feedback. Commissioner Schrader has seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, thank you both very much. And Clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0, Mr. Chair.
Okay, again, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. This concludes our policy session of this morning. We're going to be right back here at 1:30 this afternoon. So.
Frog suit.
Welcome back, everyone, to our policy session on November 12th, 2025. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Roll call. Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner Helm.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner West.
Here.
Chair Roberts.
Here. Thank you, Gary. You're on.
Thank you. Your single policy session this afternoon is Recovery Campus Funding Options. Implications also for opioid funding and Metro Supportive Housing Services administrative funding. There are technically 3 presentations today that we're all combining into one. So I ask if you'd please let staff present on all 3 first. Happy to answer your questions in the middle, but please don't start deliberating on financing packages until the very end of all the staff presentations, if you don't mind. Our presenters today are Vahid Brown, who's Deputy Division Director of the Housing and Community Development Division of Health, Housing, and Human Services, Kim LaCroix, who's Public Health Division Director from Health, Housing, and Human Services, Mary Rumbaugh, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services, Cindy Becker, Project Manager in the Office of the County Administrator. The order today will be Recovery Campus funding first, then the opioid funding settlement dollars second, finally supportive housing services administrative funding dollars, and then discussion on all three. So we'll start with Recovery Campus funding. Whoever is going to go ahead, please.
So good afternoon, Commissioners. If you turn to attachment A1, I am going to review the financial need, the gap, and the options with you. I did it a little bit differently to make it a little clearer, hopefully. And so going into the three components here. The first component is the property purchase. As you know, we purchased that property last year for $3.5 million, and we funded it through behavioral health settlement, ARPA, and supported housing dollars. So there's no gap. That's clear. The next is Building 1, which is the clinical building. Again, to remind you, that is with the withdrawal management, residential treatment beds, support services around residential treatment and training, and administration. So the cost for this building is $25.7 million, which includes demolition and pre-construction. And the available funds are $11 million. So we've already paid for the pre-construction, and we have $9.2 million out of the $10.2 million of SHS funds that was set aside for this project. Those have not been spent yet or dedicated. So the total funds available are $11 million. Taken away from the 25, there's a $14 million, $14.7 million gap. So the question is, how do we fill that gap? And so what I did a lot of listening to what y'all said last time we met, and understand the sensitivities, understand that this is a Sophie's choice. All of these are going to have issues, all of these are going to have concerns, but they all add up to what you need. So I'm going to start with option 3. Option 3, so the three things that we're looking at is opioid dollars, a loan from CDBG, a Community Development Block Grant, a 10-year loan at about 5%, and using the available SHS dollars. Those are the three funding sources that we're looking at. So the first one, if you didn't want to use any general fund, and where general fund is involved, is in repayment of the CDBG loan. Okay. The others are not general fund. So if you wanted to not use any general funds, then the recommendation is to go with option 3. The $6.6 million is what we believe is available for the Metro SHS dollars that we'll be applying for. So that's where that number came from. And then it's a pure subtraction. Taking that away from the 14.7, you have $8 million left out of the $12 million that's available for opioid funding. So that's one option. The next option, going back to option 1, doesn't use any SHS dollars, and instead takes that same $6.6 million that was available in SHS and just puts that with the CDBG loan. So even though we could ask for 10, we're saying we would only need 6.6, and then the remainder would be the opioid settlement would be the same. So the difference between option 1 and option 3 is whether or not you want to use general funds to repay that. The repayment for option 1 is about $860,000 a year for 10 years. That's a 10-year loan calculated at 5%. So option 2 also does not utilize any SHS dollars. And what I did in option 2 is calculated how much of the opioid dollars was being spent in the sheet that Mary gave you last time. It's about $3.5 million that was contracted with in the community. So I just took that from the 12 million, 12.5 available, and got to 9.5. And so it basically allows you to continue those services for another year, and then the remainder would be the CDBG loan. So in this case, that the loan would be a little bit less, it's about $1 million less, so the payments would be about $680,000 a year. Any questions? Do you want me to go over the options? Now,
Commissioner West had a
Oh,
question.
sorry. Cindy, could you explain on the opioid funds, we don't have that much in the bank. So isn't there a loan involved there too, and who pays that loan back?
this, the comments requires a loan because of cash flow, because the dollars don't come they come over several years. We would need to take out a loan, which would be repaid by the opioid dollars as they come in. That would repay the loan. So that's the difference between that and the CDBG loan, which would require general funds to repay them. And so again, the option 3 uses no general funds. Option 1 and 2 uses no SHS funds, and they're just different calibrations of opioid dollars and the CDBG dollars. There's no, I mean, you could have, 1,000 different formulas there, but I tried to follow some methodology so you could see what those impacts would be. Any questions on those? Okay. Building 2.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, West, Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you. Just clarification, it looks like you have unallocated SHS funds at 9.2. That's money that we had already early on allocated. Vahid, I know we talked about that, back when, a few years ago.
Yes.
When we first started talking about this.
Yes.
And then the 6.6 is the estimated around the SHS admin funding
Right.
that we talked about last week.
Which we'll be talking about.
I'm sure again today, yes.
So-
Okay, I just wanted to clarify the different SHS pots
Thank
that
you.
people are looking at. Thank you.
Yeah, and the unallocated, I should have put unallocated SHS for this project.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so that would have been more helpful, so.
And that 9.2 is allocated for this project
Yes.
and is approved?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Yes. And so the next building is Building 2, the Housing and Outpatient Services Building. And you can see the costs here again, pre-construction and construction. Quite a while ago, you approved the pre-construction. They were together in one contract. We split them out by building here so you could see them more easily. And so the only funds that we have are for the pre-construction. So what would be needed for Building 2 is the $14.65 million. And then I just listed, here are things that we've talked about in terms of federal earmarks, energy grants, state funding, et cetera. We're going to continue to pursue these things. And there are other things I'm sure that we will add to this list. But that would be primarily for Building 2.
Commissioner West.
Now that it looks like we're going to end this long shutdown at the federal government and Congress, what is the steps to secure that federal earmark? Do we have to go through the process all over again to apply for it? Like, where are we at? What should we be counting on this, or should we be like a wish, a hope, and a dream, and maybe one day the federal government will send us that part of the funding? How should we look at that?
So, Commissioner, I don't believe we have to reapply. It hasn't been formally rescinded.
Okay.
So it's still in play, if you will. And I have no idea. I would love to be able to say we should count on it, but I think that would be unrealistic.
Okay.
Commissioner Helm.
So Cindy, why on option 1, 2, or 3 isn't there one that's a combination of all 3?
Well, my understanding with the SHS dollars is you apply for one project.
Oh,
You can't
okay,
even
so
split the
it's
SHS
very,
up.
it's very siloed. Okay, that's what I wasn't sure why it wasn't like done the other way. All right, thank you.
Do you have
I'm done.
anything else to add?
No, I'm done. I'm done, sorry.
So
I wanted to make sure we were following Gary's lead.
So if you're okay, then we'll move on to the second component, that's the opioid settlement funding. And go ahead.
Thank you again. Mary Rumbaugh, H3S Director, here with Kim LaCroix. So today, some of our quick goals are to, not all of you were seated at the time that the most recent funding commitments were made. So give a little bit of background on actually how we got here around opioid settlement. Many of you have been asking sort of how are we funding it? What are we getting good outcomes? So we're going to accomplish that as well today, and really just sort of lay out the sort of the past to the present, and then obviously answer any questions as we get through this. So I'm going to turn it over to Kim to go relatively quickly through our slides.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mary. So like Mary said, I'll start out by giving a little bit of history of the opioid settlement funding. So I think, as you know, the opioid epidemic has really created tremendous harm across many populations in Clackamas County in terms of lives lost, families impacted, increased strain on public services. Over the past 25 years, the pharmaceutical companies have contributed to unprecedented increase in opioid prescribing, opioid use disorder, and deaths by overdose. The pharmaceutical companies promoted opioids for chronic pain management while downplaying the risks. And now we have an opportunity, because of lawsuits brought by states, cities, and counties against the manufacturers, to mitigate the harms associated with the crisis and invest in solutions that help prevent additional deaths. So a little bit of data for you. So the significant rise in substance use disorders and overdose deaths is largely due to the opioid crisis that first started out with prescription opioids and then led to future waves of the epidemic, including heroin, fentanyl, and most recently polysubstance use. So in 2020, overdose fatalities in the U.S. exceeded 100,000, and they continued to rise for several years after that. But the good news is that we're finally beginning to see a decline in these fatalities, and preliminary data shows that for 2024, we saw a 27% decrease, and so this is the lowest number of projected overdose deaths since 2019. However, there are still some disparities. We continue to see overdose deaths accelerating among older adults, age 55 and older, certain racial and ethnic populations, and it does remain the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 44. So the Clackamas County data is following the same national trend, where we saw deaths increasing over the last several years with a recent downward trend. This data is not finalized yet for 2024, so we may see a few changes in numbers. But fentanyl and methamphetamine continue to be our biggest drug threats. Often, both of those drugs are found together in toxicology reports. And research at the national level shows that the factors that are leading to the decrease are increased distribution of naloxone, which is the opioid overdose reversal medication, connecting folks to treatment, housing, and other supports, and then the impact of the investments from the opioid lawsuits. So as of now, through 2038, over $700 million is coming to Oregon as part of settlements. This includes a very recent settlement with Kroger. 55% of that amount is distributed across the counties that signed on to the agreements, as well as cities with populations above 10,000. Clackamas County will now receive about $29 million with the new settlements through Kroger, plus additional settlements through Target and Costco. And we started receiving these payments in 2022, and they'll continue until about 2038. So the total amount received to date before attorney fees is $10.94 million. After attorney fees, it's about $10.85. There's been 3 previous BCC-approved opioid settlement allocations, and that, in addition to a $1 million that was awarded to community-based organizations. In those allocations, there was $2.14 million for the Recovery Campus and an additional $750,000 for BCC priority projects. And the total amount invested in these critical services to date is $7.23 million. So we have a remaining balance of $3.62 million. So here you can see a timeline of the payments. So this includes the previous payments received and the approximate amounts that we are expected to receive based on the latest opioid settlement sign-ons. So you can see, we had a total of $10.85 million after attorney fees beginning in 2022. After the allocations, we have a balance of $3.6 million remaining, and then we anticipate to receive approximately $8 million beginning in 2026 through 2030, for a total of approximately $11.6 million available between now and 2030. These amounts do not include the Purdue settlement and a settlement with 8 manufacturers. That's going to bring an additional $3.2 million. It's not included because that's recent, and we don't know the payment schedule or when we're going to receive that funding. So there's been a lot of effort put into building the Clackamas opioid settlement framework, and we have received a lot of recognition for our model. We did a lot of assessment. We looked at data from an OHSU report that looked at service gaps in our county, and we also wanted to look for opportunities to blend funding with other sources like Measure 110 dollars and cover gaps where we didn't have any funding at all, like primary prevention. And we did a lot of community engagement as part of this framework. So we heard from the community, we included their recommendations in the framework. And all of that was packaged together and shared with you all, where you awarded the $1 million in funding towards the community grant process. And staff have been collecting reports, tracking progress, and providing technical assistance to support the projects and ensure they're successful. So we have a framework for our opioid settlement allocations, and it's built on 4 guiding principles that align with the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. So they include using evidence to guide investments, lifting up equity, supporting collaboration, and transparency and accountability. And we've been keeping the website up to date, and we have some really great videos about some of the grantees, such as 4D Recovery, Todos Untos, and Parrot Creek. So current investments support the priorities of the BCC to address urgent needs related to substance use and alignment with the recovery-oriented system of care. Funds have been allocated to 13 projects. 7 are to internal departments and divisions, and 6 to external community partners. And they really help build upon the entire spectrum, including prevention, treatment, warm handoff, and recovery programs. Many of these projects are working to address the underlying causes of substance use and support individuals along a successful path to recovery. It includes services such as healthcare, peer support, treatment, and housing. We are serving about 1,700 residents per quarter. And most of these projects do utilize a braided funding model, so where they've been using settlement funds along with Measure 110 grants and CCO funds, but unfortunately, many of these other funding sources are going away. We did see a significant reduction in this last round of Measure 110 allocations. We've seen elimination of some federal grants and the loss of some CCO funding. It's been about a year since we provided an update on these services, so I'll show you how the money's been spent and what the outcomes have been so far. So here you can see some high-level outcomes of the projects that are funded through June 30th, 2026. And without these continued opioid settlement funding, the majority of these programs and services would end. This includes about 6.5 county positions from Health, Housing, and Human Services, the jail, and the DA's office, and 6 positions from community organizations. These programs and services have taken years to build and are the foundation of a recovery-oriented system of care. And many of these projects are working together to provide services, and without them, we can see some significant impacts. A few that I'll highlight, the settlement funding supports a nurse in the Clackamas County Jail who manages a list of individuals with opioid use disorder. That funding helps ensure that folks in custody have access to medication-assisted treatment during their incarceration. And then building on that, there's a local treatment provider that was awarded one of the community grants, CODA, that is able to ensure that those who already have a prescription for methadone receive methadone while they're incarcerated. And that's really innovative work. We've been recognized as one of We've been recognized by the Bureau of Justice and others as a mentor facility for that program, and there are a significant number of people in custody who do have substance use disorder. It's about 65%. Another critical program is Project Hope. This includes 2 peer mentors and a case manager who work closely with the jail staff to coordinate care for those transitioning out of the jail, but they also work with the health centers, probation officers, community paramedics, and the hospitals in the region to support those who have overdosed or who have a substance use disorder. And together, those 2 programs, Project Hope and the jail nurse, serve about 2,000 people last fiscal year. A couple other examples are the juvenile department. They have stood up a diversion program in partnership with Gladstone High School, County Mental Health, and community-based organizations. And the funds are also supporting our rural communities who have been disproportionately impacted by the opioid crisis. Parrot Creek Child and Family Services provides mobile-based treatment and recovery supports, and Todos Untos is providing critical prevention programming in rural schools. The prevention programming build life skills, increase protective factors, and decrease risk factors for youth substance use. They're serving about 435 individuals per quarter. So in summary, all the projects that are being funded through the settlement are the foundation of a recovery-oriented system of care. The Recovery Campus will be heavily dependent on these programs to help fill beds and connect residents to care. A Recovery Campus will be a tremendous asset to our county, but shifting these funds now would widen the gap in services, leading to potentially more harms and loss over the coming years. That's all I have.
Any questions?
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I have a question. On that one pie chart that shows the county share and the city share, can you just remind us what the cities are doing and how effectively we think with their share? I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to share in some of that cost, knowing that their residents in cities could benefit from the recovery center. It seems to me that we would, we're not going to exclude people who live in the cities, right? So is there a way to participate in a way that's equitable?
Yeah, I mean, I can share how the cities have been investing their funds. So Milwaukee, Lake Oswego, Oregon City, they have invested their funding in behavioral health co-responders or behavioral health case manager. So those positions are embedded within a police department, and they work with officers to respond to those dealing with mental health and substance use-related incidents. Wilsonville has a peer recovery mentor who works closely with CCSO, and Wilsonville Behavioral Health Responder to support the mental health and substance use disorders. So I do think there's opportunities to work together to leverage funding, but that's how they're spending their funding now.
Okay.
Commissioner West.
Leave it here, 55% to counties and cities, and we have 45% to the state. I'm only asking this because the governor brought it up when Commissioner Savas and I had a little sidebar with her on this issue. So I'm curious, with the state's funding for opioid dollars, what branch controls the distribution of state opioid money? Is it the executive branch, the legislature, a committee? Who controls how that is distributed out?
I think it's Oregon Health Authority. Do you know?
It is under Oregon Health Authority, and I believe unless something has changed now under Sheriff, previous Captain Eby is actually representing us as well. I don't feel like there's been a lot of information about how they have distributed the money, and I think for us as a county already receiving our distribution, I don't think it excludes us from applying. But in my mind, I've been less focused on sort of the way that the state has thought about it, because there are other parts of the state that, did not sign on to the settlement, and so this was their opportunity to apply for the funding. But that actually would, I think, be a future good follow-up, is to better understand sort of how the state has distributed the funding, and sort of what their, quote, application process is.
My understanding is your understanding it's not quite known yet, and maybe it's still a little it's not solidified and how that's, and so maybe there is an avenue there. And I'm just curious if that is us continuing to work with the governor's office and OHA, or, you know, if there happens to be by statute some other mechanism to divvy out those funds. My other question is, you went to the slide of the in-house services that we currently operate. It was almost like a little icon with little, yeah, that one, thank you. When we were looking at pregnant women with substance use disorder, that one specifically, can we talk about that program just a little bit? And I'm wondering if there's a potential partnership that would be more efficient than the money we're spending now to help those individuals. Like, I'm thinking some other nonprofits that do some of this specific work, and maybe we have a partnership where we can more affordably have them help with this population and maybe to free up some of these funds. I'm just thinking of, so I didn't know if you could tell me a little bit about what is going on there.
And I think just to clarify, this slide actually is a high level of both the funding. So actually, and Kim's going to talk about it, that program in particular is actually already contracted out to
It is
a
contracted
nonprofit,
out,
but
okay.
we can.
Yeah, so the nonprofit that we contract with is Northwest Family Services,
Okay.
and they have a doula program for pregnant and postpartum people with substance use disorder. It really helps increase access to prenatal care, treatment and recovery, and reduces family separation and childhood trauma.
And you all approved a $200,000
I remember that,
dollar
yeah.
grant for 2 years. Yeah.
And these are the ones I'm looking, that are in front of us, these are specifically funded with opioid dollars from the county. We talked about some were in-house and more substantially connected to the county, and then we're supporting more outside entities. Have we parsed out what those different groups are?
Yeah, so there's 13 funded projects. There's 7 internal and 6 external. The internal projects are Public Health, Project Hope.
Is it the ones, are these the internals?
They're the internals, yep.
These are the 7 internals and then the 6 externals.
That's correct. For the-
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, wait, I did read all this, let's see.
So many pieces of paper.
So the externals are 4D Recovery, Parrot Creek, CODA, Todos Untos for
Okay.
Prevention Programming, Northwest Family Services.
Okay, okay. Those are my questions for now, thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Hill.
So you mentioned Purdue, which is / the Sackler family, correct? And is that still outstanding?
No, that one, it was signed fairly recently by AG Rayfield, and that is expected to bring in an additional $3.2 million to Clackamas County. It is not part of the overall $29 million, and that's because we don't yet have our payment schedule, and we don't know when that actual money is coming.
But you are expecting it?
are
Or it's
expecting
not
it.
it may or may not come like the federal
The
earmark?
settlement agreement has been signed, so we are expecting it. We just don't know when, and if the payments will be like front-loaded, like we'll get a bunch in the first year or two, or if it'll be spread out. We don't know that yet.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Gary, suggestions of kind of what goes first? It's
Well,
almost seems.
there's one more to go, one more presentation. That's Supportive Housing Services Administrative Funding. Go ahead, please.
I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. So I am joined here by Vahid Brown, our Deputy Director with Housing and Community Development. So just to level set it a little bit, and we haven't interspersed this conversation so far today, which is this is the Metro admin funding is different than what has already been, committed and received through Metro for supported housing services. Vahid will give a little bit more background on that. And the conversation ultimately today is really what the board will be directing us to go back to Metro to recommend. It is actually Metro's dollars, and so they will be deciding sort of what is an appropriate use of the projects that are being brought forth. And there's actually been some recent development and relationships with the other two counties as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Vahid, and he's going to walk us through.
Thank you, Mary. Chair Roberts, Commissioners, Vahid Brown. Just a logistical issue. Our laptop has died. So
yes.
if Andrew, I don't mind if I can just, if you can advance the slides, then I can kind of keep track on my paper. That works for me. Thanks. So I'm just going to stay on the title side for a moment. A little bit more background about the administrative funds that this is concerning. Metro receives 5% of the tax to fund their administrative activities. And in the first 4 years, we're in year 5 now, of the SHS program, they didn't spend anywhere near that 5% of their kind of cut. So that had accumulated up to a $31 million carryover balance. And there began to be conversations with the implementing jurisdictions, Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas County, about making some of these funds available for one-time strategic investments. Earlier in this year, City of Portland and Multnomah County identified a budget gap in their previous fiscal year's shelter plan, and Multnomah County made a request for $15 million of that 31 on behalf of the City of Portland to fill gaps in their shelter plan. That was approved, and $15 million of the SHS admin carryover was allocated to Multnomah County, which passed it through to the City of Portland. Earlier this month, Washington County made a request for $10 million, also for one-time strategic investments, 6 for filling gaps in capital projects that had already been underway but had developed gaps, and 4 for eviction prevention funding. As you, I'm sure, recall, the state legislature cut the eviction prevention funding for the state by 74% in the last legislature, and Washington County had a very significant hole in that program. In Clackamas County, we have been committing a significant amount of SHS to eviction prevention programming, so we did not have that same kind of impact. The Metro Council had not articulated a very formalized process for the counties to request administrative funds. So the other two counties have composed a memo and have submitted those to the Metro Council. Metro Council has deliberated about them and then made their decisions. What they have said about sort of allowable uses is, in general, of course, there are the allowable uses of SHS governed by our intergovernmental agreements. SHS is meant to respond to homelessness. 75% of the dollars must be committed to what is called Population A under the language of the measure, and that is people who are experiencing long periods of homelessness and are dealing with a disabling condition. And 25% of the resources can be dedicated to people who are at risk of experiencing homelessness, Population B. So that's a rubric that is assumed to apply to the administrative funds. They've also said in their deliberations about the requests from Washington and Multnomah County that the purpose of the administrative fund allocations to the counties is for strategic one-time investments to support stabilizing homeless services programming and existing capital projects so long as it prioritizes those experiencing homelessness currently. So that's how Metro has framed their the available dollars. Presumably these are available. The 6.6 is what we understand to be available that has not yet been requested by Clackamas County. Metro staff have recently, said in an oversight committee meeting that they anticipate that Clackamas County will bring forward a request soon. So we at the department have prepared our assessment of what is the highest priority kind of strategic and use of these one-time dollars from the SHS program, and that's what I'm providing to you today. If we could go to the next slide. Very simply, it's the priority capital need that the department has identified is with respect to shelter. Our shelter system is doing a good job within our balanced system of care, getting people safely off the streets and on their way to permanent housing. We have a variety of programming to meet different people's different needs depending on their family and so on. We do have family shelter through Northwest Housing Alternatives and through the Native American Youth and Association, NAYA, in Milwaukee. We have domestic violence shelter through CWS, Clackamas Women's Services, and Northwest Family Services. We have some youth shelter. But our primary need is for single adult, the general population shelter. And for that, we have our motel program and now the new Clackamas Village. We also have the Veterans Village, which is for veterans experiencing homelessness. 90% of the people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness in Clackamas County and that we shelter are single adults or 2 adult households. 80% of them are single adults living alone. 90% of them are single adults or 2 adult households. So the vast majority of people are single adults. Our primary shelter program for this population is motel-based. It's contracted through contracts with existing motels. We rent the rooms on a nightly basis for a contract period, and we have a contract with the Father's Heart Street Ministries for the supportive services. The cost annually for our 40 beds of motel shelter is $4 million, about equally split between the rent on the motel rooms and the cost of services. So our assessment of the available administrative funds for a strategic one-time investment is that we could save the county the cost of the rental of the motel rooms on an annual basis by having a permanent shelter program for that population. Basically an expansion of the Clackamas Village, you might think. So the Clackamas Village is a 24-unit shelter village community for single adults. At the cost that the 24-unit Clackamas Village was developed, a 40-unit village could be developed within the parameters of the available administrative funds. So that would be our primary approach, and I'll say a little bit more about that. But some of the other points here, over the life of the measure, at $2 million of savings a year, that would be $12 million by the end of the current life of this tax. So that's a significant savings for the county and that could be reinvested in other areas, including, if necessary, in eviction prevention resources if those continue to be underfunded by the state, but also to expand and invest in the county's recovery-oriented system of care priorities. Very briefly on the next slide, thank you, Andrew. I've spoken with this board about our balanced system of care, so I don't need to belabor that, but this is a kind of an image of our continuum from, keeping people in the first place from becoming homeless, outreaching to them in the community. Shelter is a core central component of providing that safety off of the streets. It's an emergency intervention. And as I said, our shelter programming for our core single adult population is quite expensive because it's based on motel rentals. The next slide is a map that shows where our shelter programming is. The Auntie's Place or Klotjaka House is the Native American Youth and Family Association family shelter with culturally specific services, Father's Heart's motel shelter program, the Veterans Village and Clackamas Village. Ant Farm has been allocated funds by this board for the development of resource centers, which will operate motel shelter as well, but those are not yet complete. The 2 site-based domestic violence shelters are, of course, at non-disclosed locations, so those are not on this map. And our family shelter providers do utilize motels on a scattered site basis as appropriate for families experiencing homelessness, and we think that's a good model. So we have funds in contracts with our providers who serve families experiencing homelessness that allow them to place families for short periods of time in a hotel room at any hotel in the county, and then work with them on their plan for permanent housing. So we wouldn't stop doing that. Hotels would still be part of our approach as appropriate for certain populations like families, but we would be moving away from a motel-centered approach for single adults. Part of the reason we think this is a strategic use of these available resources is kind of spoken to on the next slide. The SHS revenue is very volatile. It has that volatility has bitten the implementing counties, right? It did in the last fiscal year. We built a budget based on a revenue that was provided to us by the Metro Economist, and mid-year, the Metro Economist said, hold on, we don't think that much money is actually going to come in. In fact, it's going to be many millions less than we told you. So we built a budget in Clackamas County that was almost $10 million more than the revenue we received. So we had to pause programming and stop issuing vouchers and so on. And the Metro Economist, in their most recent communications to the county, has emphasized the need to prioritize core programming and to look for cost containment strategies, which we are doing. But this would be in line with that, a cost containment strategy by limiting our year-over-year costs for shelter by using it for capital to build or buy one. And that's simply the message on the final slide there, is a transitioning from a motel base to a shelter ownership model would, that would be the department's recommendation, aside from the conversation around the resource, the recovery campus, that aside, that would be the top priority for a strategic use of these dollars. It's a $12 million savings over the life of the measure. It gives us a permanent asset in our shelter continuum. And it allows us to really have a better model for this population. The final slide kind of articulates the process, what would happen next, whether the board directs staff to request funds from Metro for a permanent shelter or for the recovery campus. The board would approve the concept and would sign off on a letter to Metro Council. We would then, if we were to move forward on a permanent shelter, we would proceed on 2 tracks immediately. One is to identify a site for a transitional shelter community like the Clackamas Village or the Veterans Village. We know the costs. We've already paid for the architectural and design work for the Clackamas Village, so we have savings there. We could simply use some of our existing models. So we would be looking to identify land, and I've already spoken to Dan Johnson at the Department of Transportation Development that pending this conversation, I may want to talk with him about available land. But we would also issue a request for expressions of interest for a kind of the unicorn of an existing building that's shelter-ready in the community that could be used as a congregate shelter. We do not have a permanent congregate shelter. Congregate shelter is a good model for many types of sheltering and for many specific populations. But they're also very hard to find, and there are many impediments to opening a congregate shelter in a building, given neighbors and location. So this would be a request for expressions of interest, so our nonprofit partners like the Father's Heart or others could come forward and say, we found one. We found a great building, and we think it's a good deal, and it's ready. And then the board could consider that. It's unlikely, I think, it's fair to say, that there is such a perfect building in the community, but we don't know. We would like to ask. So we would be moving forward with the assumption that we would be building a village, like we did with the Clackamas Village. We know that we can manage that within this available resource, but we would also be asking, does someone have a line on a perfect building for a congregate shelter? So that is what we would do if the board directed us to request the funds for shelter. But that is the board's decision, and that is the conclusion of my presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner West.
Oh, is my light on?
Oh, I'm sorry, it was from last time. Sorry. Commissioner Savas.
So, thanks, Vahid. I am trying to now understand the bucket of money for this shelter. Would that be the same bucket that's competing for the recovery center?
Yes.
Okay. And how much total available funds are there for those one-time capital funds from the administrative Metro funds, SHS funds? What's the total bucket?
I think the total bucket before they made allocations to Washington and Clackamas was around 31 million. I don't know the 31 point. I'm assuming it's around 600,000 because of the way these numbers have kind of been talked about. My understanding is that there's 6.6 approximately remaining of accumulated administrative funds at Metro that they're in a sense holding for Clackamas County's request.
Total. So they are competing.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, to be clear, this recommendation was prepared by the department before the sort of separate from the conversation around the recovery campus. So we knew that there was administrative funds available at Metro. Washington and Clackamas and Multnomah had developed, sort of recommendations. So the department developed a recommendation. What aside from the recovery campus aside, what does the department feel would be the best use of these resources as one-time strategic investments for our homelessness system? And that's why we would have recommended a shelter. But now it is a competing recommendation.
So is there a way to take the some odd $2 million in savings and leverage that to build the shelter in such a way, so it's not necessarily competing with the 6.6 as much as it's some kind of a payback, right? Can we somehow leverage those ongoing funds? Because that 2.1,
Yes.
the savings is ongoing funds, it's
That's
not the
correct.
one-time capital.
That's right.
So is there a way to replenish that?
Yes, and that would be up to the kind of the board's priorities, right? So those have been budgeted and sort of committed in perpetuity. As long as this tax is coming, we've budgeted that rent amount for hotels. If we're no longer renting those motels, that's available ongoing resource that could be bonded against or dedicated by the board to the recovery campus. That would be an option before you.
So it could be done in a way that they're not competing for those SHS funds.
Yeah.
That'd be my recommendation, as well as the recommendation going back to option 3 for building 1.
Commissioner West.
So here's my concern, that 6.6 is very appealing. However, what is the tie to homelessness? And we have already pushed that envelope for the 9.2. And then we get a whole new Metro review on whether or not we are meeting their definition of how we want to utilize this specific campus, the recovery campus. We could do that, but it's precarious. Am I wrong?
We would agree. The conversations we've had, publicly is certainly the recovery campus will serve a portion of our houseless population. It's a dotted line. I wouldn't say it's a straight line. Versus a shelter very clearly supports the intent behind Metro and SHS. So you're correct.
However, the $2 million-ish that would be relieved if we stopped utilizing retail cost of hotels, market rates for hotels, that money could be specifically used either to pay back the bond, like the CBGD, CBGD, did I say it right? I might have said it wrong, whatever. We know what I'm talking about. Or additional bonding necessary to fund the campus. Is that right?
Yes, I think so, Commissioner West. The same kind of tension you named with respect to the admin dollars wouldn't necessarily be the same for the ongoing 2 million. Again, the way that the SHS measure requires we dedicate the funding, 25% is available for population B. People who are struggling with an acute substance use disorder are certainly at risk of experiencing homelessness. So I don't think it's difficult to make the case for that.
Okay. So I am concerned about opening up Pandora's box with Metro on those admin funds. Now, the conversations with the task force, we were supposed to have it be more flexible for recovery infrastructure like this. We haven't quite got there yet, and how the new oversight committee is structured, how we want to, the changes to the SHS, the things now that we have some agreement on is for more opportunity around recovery infrastructure and having some local control with that. I think Metro actually does support that, but that's not how it is today. We absolutely do need some type of shelter infrastructure to be part of the care continuum. And what I like is that we've built out an innovative system to where there's a warm handoff to that next step. That doesn't really exist within Portland or Multnomah County. It's just like I like to call it the shelter washing machine. You guys have heard me say that before. Shelter in, shelter out, Narcan in, Narcan. I mean, it's just like ongoing. And then that really has had some struggles there with what is that next step. So I would support the shelter idea. And I'll leave it at that because I think Commissioner Savas wants to jump on this topic too, where I can see his wheels turning over there. I see it working.
It's all numbers. So back to the conversation, Commissioner, you talked about the precarious aspect of this. It seems to me that if we go to Metro and say, here's our plan, and they approve it, I think it should take away, am I wrong? Should take away any uncertainty?
They might look at the 9.2 again. It might uncover everything is the concern, right? That we worked hard to get the 9.2. We're like, okay, we're pushing the boundaries for that 9.2. And then this would kind of re-expose the entire project, again, is the concern. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, and to be fair, the original commitment was 10.2. We've already spent a portion of that. The 9.2 is on our books, but we haven't allocated it to the recovery campus. I mean, I think it's all potentially a risk. If really a proposal of the 6.6 is all focused on the recovery campus, and they say, that's not a direct line to addressing the homeless crisis in our community, where else have you also committed funds? So, who knows if it's a big risk, but I certainly think their oversight, because it is their money, in this case, it's their admin money, I do think there will be more scrutiny around absolutely are the dollars going to address our homeless crisis in this community.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the funding stream of the savings, if you want to call it that, of the hotel rooms. That could be, because that's more fungible in an aspect, right?
Yes.
So therefore, it's more fungible. I mean, maybe you're taking maybe the right portion of the fixed balance of the 9.2 and what they're happy with, and then come up with a payment plan in which you utilize those dollars from the hotel savings that fund the balance. There's a way to get there.
Commissioner Helm.
This is called creative financing.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is kill two birds with one stone, because we have two major issues we're trying to resolve. And my whole thing is what comes first, right? The cart or the horse, right? The addiction issues lead to homelessness, but if we can get them treatment, then they can get housing, but then we don't have housing for them. So I like the idea of I need to see this on a whiteboard, how that works with the financing, but I would be on board to leverage that 2 million in savings towards shelters. I think that's better money spent for the crisis at hand. But I don't know how that pencils out. It's trying to do the math in my head and looking at having to use these dollars specifically, the SHS, I don't know how that would work. And I don't want to jeopardize it either, right? So, but I think Metro would be open to us solving two problems. I really do. I don't think they're unreasonable. I think that they would see what we're trying to achieve, and I think it's an easy sell in some ways. If we were trying to do something totally off the rails, I think they'd say, heck no. But I think this is doable.
I would add and say that it wouldn't take very long with that $2.1 million savings to actually make this all happen. And then after it's all settled out, then you have that ongoing stream of 2.1 to do what you need to do with, right? So it's freed up. So this is not like a 10-year or 30-year commitment. It's far less than that to get there.
Commissioner West.
Yeah, in your slide, your presentation, you talked about the different places where we had shelter. Would not the stabilization center be considered that also because we have respite housing attached to it on that one side?
Yeah.
I didn't see that on the map, but what is that, like, how many beds is that, 13, 15?
13 beds.
13
Yeah.
beds. So that's shelter-ish, it's transitional, it's 90 days, right?
Yep.
So that we have access to that real soon here and now, we're open, right?
Soft
So,
opening today.
so yeah, we're open today. So are we also including that? So we have Clackamas Village, Veterans Village, we do have the stabilization center. That's our
Yeah.
non-hotel sheltering that we've been building up over the last 2 years.
Right.
Those are all online. So you're thinking we need another 40 unit, and it's something similar to Clackamas Village in its build out, which I love because it's not, I've always said this, sometimes we only had access to a hotel, we've used those temporarily, but I do not believe hotels are trauma-informed care or treatment for individuals, especially if there's two individuals in one room forever with no space from one another. I know I would have difficulty cohabitating that way with anybody, and there's other logistical real issues with how it's developed. The Clackamas Village does not have those issues. It is built in a communal type of way that supports recovery and in a way to for individuals to build community together that supports that effort, and like the Clackamas Village. So as we build out long-term infrastructure, that excites me because we've shown how that's worked and how it's effective and it's built for that need. And we're not retrofitting some old hotel motel and to try to make it work. That's been one of my criticisms of having to use that. And so as we shift away, I like that. I like the long-term revenue stream of that. I don't know exactly where we're at with, you know, what money goes where, what goes towards the campus, what's going to go towards the shelter. But we're ready for that final piece of sheltering within that kind of care continuum.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, just to take it one step farther, I mean, I think if we can work out, I don't want to overcomplicate it, but if we can work this out with the right share of the fixed administrative dollars of SHS with Metro, and then backfill it, the balance for the recovery center with the 2.1 planned savings somehow, then I think the other opportunity is that looking forward, whether or not that could be part or all of a funding stream for Building 2.
The $2 million pays the bond to fund 2 buildings? Is that what you're asking?
I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't want to overcomplicate it. I just want to keep it down to Building 1 and then the shelter, but it seems to me there could be a path. I wouldn't want to completely commit, but I don't know what the right funding stream is. You guys all know that, but have you explored that?
No, I mean, I think, you know, and as much as our analysis is a 2 million savings, I mean, there is, like, again, there is capital needed to build out a village. There is ongoing operating. We already know that, you know, our commitment per annually is 4 million, 2 million going to the support services that are happening. So I worry a little bit that it's a little bit, you know, back of the napkin math. And so, you know, and I'm still not seeing sort of your proposal, Commissioner Savas, on how we're also addressing, again, to Commissioner Helm's point, 2 competing demands within our community. And I will just say, as the department director who has ownership in both the houseless crisis we're trying to address and an investment in recovery campus, and then we were sort of granted the opportunity to come back to you all around opioid, I feel completely conflicted all the time about how best to meet really these competing demands without the money in hand. So again, ultimately, you're going to direct us, but I also just, you know, I said that to you in our one-on-ones, like, I do have to advocate for a shelter in this county. It is such a huge gap today, just like the recovery campus is a huge gap today. So I feel the need to own that as well.
Yeah, I think it's also.
Could switch to Gary, wanted to.
So if I'm following your line of thought here, I'd like to clarify this. So you would you'd ask for Metro, the 6.6 million of administrative funds for a shelter.
No, for recovery campus.
Okay, that's not what I'm hearing you say. So here's what I think you're saying. Use it for a shelter, and then once that shelter is built, it's going to save approximately $2 million a year that we're currently spending on hotel shelters. That would free that up, that you then could use, once our shelter is built, to use for perhaps a bond or payment for a recovery center fund. Is that what you're suggesting?
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, I wish I had a whiteboard. I'd be up there or an easel. So the 6.6, going back to the very beginning, Cindy, the 6.6, that's the same 6.6, is it not, in option 3, right? So there's only one 6.6 bucket of money.
Right.
So my idea was, again, going back to the conversation, what's the right amount that Metro will approve? And let's just say they say it's 3.3. Well, hypothetically, so 3.3 is eligible for the recovery center. Then take the balance, Gary, take the balance and apply that towards the shelter, if that's approvable with Metro, right? To me, I think we need to go to them and say, hey, here's some ideas, right? And then again, use that 2.1 of savings to fund the shortfall and whether it's a loan or whatnot, however that's done. But that's what I meant, was Recovery Campus first, right? And the balance of that. So the answer is yes and no. The 6.6 would go to both, potentially. If Metro says, here's the right proportion we agree with.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry, I was looking at Gary. Go ahead, Cindy.
So I get what you're saying, Commissioner. I think, again, we have to look at cash flow, and we would need to map that out. I mean, I have the cash flow needs of the Recovery Campus, at least for, and again, this was when we were doing both buildings at the same time. I don't know the 2 million quote-unquote savings that you have is, what source of money? What's the color of that money?
It's SHS ongoing revenue. It comes in year over year.
Okay, until when?
Till 2031.
Okay, so that's 6 years. Okay, so that's $12 million, let's say. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we're not going to work out the math right here today. What we need from you is give us your priorities of these three sources of funds: opioid, CDBG,
It's not easy to get off the tongue.
loan, and SHS. It's really the priority, and then we can, whether it's, we can jigger the money in terms of, how that balances out between the three, but I think what we need from you is, first of all, my first question is going to be, do you want to fund Building 1? And if that's true, then here's your priorities, and then Building 2, what's your sense of that in terms of, we're going to continue to look for money for Building 2, we're not going to stop, but, if you want, again, that $2 million is year by year, so we would need to take out a loan because of cash flow, which we could do, but we just need that direction. We don't need the exact numbers from you, but we need to understand which pot of money do you want us to use for a second, and how do you want us to balance that?
Commissioner West.
Do you think, so yes, I don't know, do you think that Metro, if we said, here's the overall plan and we're having to, juggle all of this, we're meeting the overall goal, just give us the flexibility and they can see the overall vision, does that change our thoughts about how they might, the shelter's coming, it does do this. The campus, which your board really likes also, which they do, is also part of this whole thing to the next step. Where do they go once they leave shelter? We also already have these 3 shelter entities already established and built, which we do. How do you think that might be part of showing them more visionary big picture than granularly focusing just on the 6.6 admin funds?
I mean, I think that the idea of using some, $2 million a year is like 3% of the annual revenue, or 3.5%. I mean, it's not a huge proportion of the annual revenue. Dedicating that to a repayment of a investment to build a recovery campus is fully defensible under our local implementation plan, which commits to leveraging and aligning our homelessness response system with behavioral health services. We have this commitment. We have a kind of already cooked recovery-oriented system of care commitment in our local implementation plan. And as I said, $2 million a year, which if people are not currently experiencing homelessness that are being served in the recovery campus, there's a very good case to be made, I'm sure, that many, if not most of its clients would be people who are at risk of experiencing homelessness because of their untreated substance use disorder. So I don't think there's any question about the validity or allowability or eligibility of using ongoing revenue in the way that is part of this conversation, the $2 million that would be saved from building a shelter. Yeah, I think that it really comes down to this, the admin is Metro's money, as Mary put it, and the ongoing revenue is the county's. And the county has already has a local implementation plan that articulates our values and priorities, and the board is the decision maker about strategic priorities on a case-by-case basis with respect to unallocated funds. So it's totally within the board's purview to say we're going to allocate $2 million of saved funding towards recovery services. It fits within our LIP. What I think Metro has said about their money, as is that they're looking for investments that prioritize people experiencing homelessness currently. So there's a risk, you named, Commissioner West, about the admin funds. That asking for those funds for a shelter is kind of a no-brainer. It's already been done. Multnomah County did it, and they were awarded funds. We would have the same logic, basically. We have.
Yeah, but Vahid, if we just said, yeah, we need to do it this way funding-wise, you still get the shelter, it frees us up over here to also do this. It's a win-win, right? Like, it may not look direct, but showing them the overall vision and we're building the whole thing out, they're still getting, because of that money, what they want, but this is the way we should probably finance it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is, I want it all done. Okay, everybody knows that. I want it all done.
No, not really.
I am tired of not having infrastructure in this state to deal with this problem. I'm not gonna cuss because I'm on the dais, but I'm really tired of it. So when we look at the CDBG loan, is it my understanding that part of that $2 million could cover the cost of utilizing the payment back towards that, and then once it's paid off, it's paid off. But then also, we have an issue, if we're looking at can we also, when we're talking about, we're not gonna get the math done here, but looking at, like, if we have more money out of that $2 million to potentially also start the funding of the second building. I know we also have not got to the opioid settlement. I have a lot of heartburn about dismantling our preventative. The truth is one of the pillars of our recovery-oriented system of care, which we were very clear about, was preventative. And that is the least expensive way to do any of this. And so maybe we don't need to do all of it. Maybe we have to still get creative. I get a lot of heartburn about just building the building without that additional, you're right, recovery system infrastructure. It's from a care perspective, it makes me super nervous when dealing with patients and people in this situation. So we still need to talk about that and what that looks like. But I do like the idea of leveraging that $2 million and how, because that's a good chunk of money annually, how can that be bonded again so that we can, until we figure out these other sources of money to get us off the ground. I think we're now potentially, because of that bonding capacity, revenue bond or the CDBG, that's really hard to say, loan, also, like figuring how to use those two to get more of this overall project done and be more ambitious. And I don't know how we deal with the opioid dollars. I don't know where we go with that.
Thank you. Commissioner Salvis.
Cindy's.
Go ahead, Cindy.
So there's a way to get there. I think from what we would need from you is there's going to be a need for a loan just because of cash flow. And so ideally, we would go to whoever had the lowest rate. If it's CDBG, we go there. If it's a bank loan, we go there. And the intent would be to, if you want to use the 6.6 million as the marker, that we would reallocate the $2 million a year to pay that amount. So that takes care of that piece. Well, I'm just talking about building one right now. Okay. And for the opioid dollars, I think one of the things you can do is say, we want to at least cover what we're doing today, and then any new money, like the Purdue money, would also be additive to the community. So you would of the 12.2 million, whatever, you would keep 3.5, what's being contracted today, move the rest of that to the recovery campus, and then any new money that comes through opioid settlements would enhance what you're doing in the community. So that's one way to look at it. So there's ways we can get there, but if those are the types of things, we'll give you the exact dollar amounts, but if those are the types of things you said, yes, go that way, then we can do that. And knowing that, and then we could say anything left over, so the additional money coming in every 2 years would go towards the second building. And then, so do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So here's what we need for the first building. Any overage in opioids goes here. Any overage in the SHS dollars that the county has control over goes here. Those are the types of things that we would need from you, and then we'll bring you back the actual dollars.
Can I, really quick, piggyback on what you just said there? Am I right? It looks like 12, maybe 13 point, I can need glasses, but just over 13 million is about, the cost of that would probably be almost $2 million a year. If I look at option one and we just, right, if we bonded out enough based on the repayment of $2 million, right, a year,
you would
that would give us close to
reallocate.
13 million, right? But that's still, we're still at a gap if we don't talk about these opioid dollars.
Yes.
Yeah.
You would have, yes, you need to.
So I mean, is there a way to get, we do our best with this and seek additional funding and work towards this, but maybe we are able to save some of these programs? It gives us a little bit, not gut what we're doing with the opioid dollars, but initially we can start prioritizing best bang for our buck and most critical and triage this to still use some opioid dollars, but just bonding up the $2 million repayment is not going to be enough.
All three options allow you to keep what you're doing today in opioid dollars, the 3 million, okay. So,
All those options include keeping all of this.
Well, to clarify, and apologies, and Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, it's really a total investments, both the internal investments that we've talked about and the current external community grants that you awarded, which was 1 million. It would be 4.7 million, is that correct?
It's 4.7 of the total that we're doing right now. Could you say that number, give that figure again? I don't remember it.
Do you want to articulate it
Sure.
better?
So the current funding that we have allocated right now, that existing projects, we have 3.7 million for internal projects, so 7 internal, and then we have the 1 million in the external grant. So together, it's 4.7 of existing projects.
4.7.
4.7.
And if we need to, we can have a haircut, but we're not going to obliterate it. That's what I would like to see happen, board. If we don't, that preventative piece is so vital, and when you're creating a care model. Yeah, and then I don't know how this is now opening up, Commissioner's office, you talked about building 2 now. I don't know what your, I'm not seeing what your comment, but could you expand?
Yeah, I'm going to go to
Yeah.
Savis and then
Yeah,
Hal.
so I think we're on the right wavelength here. So getting back to Cindy's point, and also to Mary's point, you know, and I'm totally open to say, come back with the final numbers, right? But the way I see it is, maybe you want to tweak the 8,126,000, you might want to tweak that, right?
Circle that one. for
Right.
you, yeah.
And then tweak the 6.6 after you talk to Metro and figure out what that number really is to apply towards the recovery center, right? And then use the remaining, the 2.1 through a CDBG payback, right? To fund the balance as well as the shelter. So you're hitting those two birds. But the problem with the 2.1 is only as long as the measure, and that's going to be limited to a few more years. And you said that potential is about 12 million. I don't disagree. So just knowing that doesn't go on much longer than that unless this gets renewed at some point.
And it's not enough in and of itself to pay
Right.
for building 2, so
Yeah,
we still
yeah.
have to augment that. But I think, again, it would seem to me that you would just go ahead on 6.6 and do the shelter and just take the rest and then reallocate the 2 million towards payment of the loan, and that way it makes it clean, as opposed to trying to break up the Metro admin into 2 projects. You get to the same place anyway, and so this way you're not, it's lower risk.
Right.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm fine however you do it.
Yeah.
Just as long as the priority on getting building 1 underway.
Yeah, we can show you, and we'll work out those numbers, but yes, we can do that.
Yeah.
And what's the plan for building 2?
So,
Sorry, I'm not giving up.
I know.
so for building 2, we still need the funds. I mean, even if, let's just say we took 6.6 million out of the reallocated SHS dollars. So let's say you have maybe, I don't know, 5.5 left if you run out the full 6 years. So you'd apply that to building 2. So you're still needing, $10 million for building 2 on top
Oh,
of
weird,
it.
10 million exactly? I wonder where we thought we were going to get that. Weird.
Miracle. And yes, so
You
we
mean we're
would still
$10
need-
million shy from building 2?
Well, if we get the 2.5, so it's, there's if, but yes,
Yeah.
there's not enough money without augmenting additional funding sources to get Building 2 done.
We're pulling genies out of a hat and a lamp and
Someplace,
every
yeah.
coin out of every coin cushion, and it'd be
Yes.
nice if the feds and the state would be good partners in this also.
Yes.
Commissioner Helm.
Okay, so forgive my ignorance. The Clackamas Village is 24 units. What year was that built?
We just
We just
finished
opened it this
year,
spring.
May of this year, it opened.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then what was the cost of that?
3.5 million.
3.5 million. And those services are provided
Yes.
with that? Okay.
No, that only includes the cost to develop the
Okay,
property.
Okay. So my suggestion was going to go with option 1, go with the opioid settlement, go with the CDBG loan, use the 2 million in savings to help repay that, but use the 6.6 of SHS towards shelter. Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that cleaner for you guys too? And I know we're not separating, it was kind of what you just, we just talked
Yeah,
about
it's the
this.
same.
But that's, and I think there would be leftover, I don't know, for 40 units for, again,
Potentially.
I think there's land available. I think there's places we've actually talked about this the other day in our meeting I get real excited when I go visit the city of Estacado and we're talking about CLT and we talk about 3D printing and how fast you can do a house, right? You can literally have a house done in like a week, right? It's all done with 3D printing and there's so much opportunity there for things like this to keep the cost down, to do it quick. And let's challenge these businesses and let's challenge these cities that are doing this to help us with this because it benefits everyone. So that would be my option, or my suggestion is go with option 1 and then use the 6.6 towards shelter, and if there's anything left over, either pay down that loan, or put it towards Building 2. You know what? I don't think we should spend the money before we have it. I am a firm believer in not spending the money before we have it. And I think Building 2 will happen. I think we're working on it. I think we've got things in the pipeline, but I'm not on board to go in debt to do that until we have some secured funding.
And if I could remind you, Commissioner Helm, where I do think, and I don't disagree with that comment, where I do think you would maybe put a placeholder is at least Building 2 is actually about the recovery transitional housing. And so that is pretty defendable use of those dollars.
Right.
And I'm sorry, just to correct the record, I said that it was 3.5 to build the cost for constructing the Clackamas Village. It was 4.3. Sorry, just,
4.3,
yeah,
okay.
correct the record.
So I really sense, and I guess we need direction here, really an option 4, which is a hybrid of everything we talked about here. But I think staff understands what we're saying. So who wants to take a stab at trying to summarize what it is we're saying?
I will take.
I'm not clear, so.
Okay,
And
I'm clear.
Well, and
think-
I wonder if I could ask a clarification, and maybe I'm actually asking Cindy. So Cindy, when you looked at option, really the opioid settlement, because one of the things that I heard Commissioner West say is really any of these options, but in particular the 8.1 is really also about still protecting the current investments. And one of the things that Cindy and I talked with I think Cindy said it to every single one of you, which is no matter what you do, somebody is going to be upset. And yet what I'm also hearing you sort of opine to figure out is potentially we might have a plan if we can make the dollars work, which hopefully Cindy can articulate, a way to still get a shelter, reinvest some of savings into Recovery Campus, allocate funding through opioid settlement to the Recovery Campus, but also protect current investments.
I want to protect those. That's my call. I said it myself already, but I think it's vital if we're serious about the priorities that we left in the pillar of our system. The pillars of our system, the first one's preventative. We can't gut a whole pillar and pretend like we're building a system.
Correct.
Yep.
And if I could just echo on Ben's comment there, I mean, first of all, I know how passionate you are. I think the whole entire board's passionate about this.
This is me being reserved.
I think our challenge, and that's where I will bring it up, and that's just, it is so tight on money. I mean, and that's where I think going back, work the numbers, come back and give us another chance. I'm still with Gary a little bit. I'm a little bit confused. I mean, I kind of have the general consensus or idea of kind of where I see where folks are headed. But I do just kind of want to remind you, I mean, we have really some huge financial challenges, and it worries me every day. And I just kind of want to remind everybody, just like we lost, for that courthouse, we cut 14 positions. This last year, we cut 7 additional positions. The state and external funding, 27 positions have been lost. Right now, thankfully, we're getting some of that SNAP funding. We dedicated some money. I don't know how that's going to work out, but we had a couple matters that come to about 1.4 million. I know there's, at least I've heard through Gary, there is some concerns about year-end balance for the sheriff's office. And with all that being said, I just think it's incumbent upon all of us to really cautiously move slowly and making sure that we're trying to do it. I see about taking money over here to get a loan to do this, and we're doing a lot of juggling, and it might work out. I'm not saying it won't, but I kind of come back to the point of, I really believe there is really no general funds right now. I mean, remember last year we had Milwaukee Community Center and all those people came. That's probably going to be this budget again. So I think the conversation really is also kind of looking long-term at, like, we're going to have these other things coming at us. So it's definitely not a no. I mean, I'm excited. I'm just, I guess, cautiously optimistic. You can work some numbers and come back and kind of convince us that we can do this. Go ahead. And you want to say something?
I think I can, and I think I need an answer from y'all, I think, but this project needs an answer. And so I think what I'm hearing from you is the opioid settlement, on option 1, the opioid settlement would go to about $7.5 million. So that covers all the current contracts. And then you would add about $1 million to the CDBG loan. So it would be $7.6 million, which would be paid back by the reallocated SHS dollars. So no general funds. And then you would have the $6.6 million of Metro funds for the shelter. So that gets, and then what I would do is kind of create a bank that says, okay, as additional non-general funds come in, so as additional opioid dollars come in, do you want to increase that, or do you want to bank that towards building 2? If there's leftover money in the SHS Metro, say it doesn't cost $6.6 million, do you want to, where do you want to put that? So I would, bank those, but I think with this option here, I think you can do them without any general funds. And we will have to take out a loan, again, because of cash flow for both opioid and the other dollars, because they come in over time and our needs are now. But we can do that. That's not going to be a problem. And we'll look whichever has the cheapest rates. So yes, Chair and Commission, we can do this without general funds. And so the decisions will just need to be, as additional dollars come in around those, where do you want them? And to your point, Commissioner Helm, we're not committing to building 2, but we're banking.
I'm okay with banking.
For building 2.
I'm okay with a savings account going
Yes.
towards it, yes.
But we've got to kind of put a box around that. If we don't put a box around that, we'll never get building 2. So we just need to be, I think, really clear about that. So yes, to your question, we can do it. We'll work out the exact numbers, but it's very doable without general funds because we have this other dollars available.
I'm going to go to, I want to go to, I'm going to go to Gary real quick. Is that all right,
Sorry, as I throw water on what you just said, my only concern is if Metro gives us the money for a shelter, that takes time to build the shelter, even though we have the plans in place from the prior one. 1 year, which means the savings from how we're currently spending shelter is not for a year and a half from now. So who's paying that first year of the payment of the loan? It won't be SHS.
Correct.
Who's paying it, Cindy?
Well, Gary, thank you for asking. So I think, again, we're taking a loan that, I mean, I hate to put a kind of what's it called? Not a three-card Monte, but yes, I will show you how that can be done. And it may be, you can take the general fund can give a loan that will be paid back by those dollars. And so maybe the first year, you do have to put general fund, but it's going to be paid back. We have a funding source to repay that general fund loan. So that's I think the critical piece is that we have identified sources. It becomes an issue of timing and how you take the timing of these buildings and the cash flow needed. I mean, the other thing is the recovery campus, we don't need all the money July 1st. So again, we'll have that year of building then. So if you let us work out the schedule, there's some overlap there. It's not just kind of one and then this. They're all going to be built around the same time, and you'll use the money for one and don't need it for the other. So yes, we can get there.
So I've told you, commissioners, but I'm going to say it again. Every penny of general fund you use from this day forward will be cut from somewhere else, just so you're fully aware of that. Thank you.
Just take my salary.
So Chair, I'm inclined to, yeah. So I'm going to go back to part of the reason I was still stuck on a modified option 3, which would be an option 4, is to that question, right? Some of that 6.6 has to be eligible for the recovery center. And that's money now, right? Yes, no. Someone correct me. That could be.
Yes.
If Metro says yes, that's money now, right?
Metro
Right.
agrees that is an allowable use.
Right. So what I'm comfortable with, and I agree with Gary, and I want to just capitalize on this whole conversation and everything that's at least spinning through my head, and I think our staffs and the board here, is that we're not using general fund. We're not going to lean on general fund. No general fund. These are dedicated, restricted funds for these eligible purposes. I want to make sure we're doing it completely legit, but there's a way of getting there with a combination of, again, option 4. So I'm comfortable making a motion, but help would be, and you said it originally, and again, I didn't want to use option 1, 2, or 3 because it makes it confusing, but I think there's a way of leveraging, say, staff, go use opioid settlement money, portion of, the right portion that retains services, existing services, leverage the SHS dollars where possible for the recovery center, leverage the CDBG loan, right, and use all of that to get the recovery center, and then use the balance to build the shelter.
If I could interject for a second, I mean, you've kind of heard what Paul said. I think we might have a consensus around that. Could you draft something up on this? Because it is a little bit complicated to make sure we get.
Yes, if you give us like a 5-minute break, staff could write it up right now and have it for you.
Yeah.
Is that all right with you, Paul?
Can I ask a quick question?
Ben? Yeah.
Before we, so as we talk, I'm going to shift to building 2 and in this interaction with the state. Are we taking active measures with the state to capitalize on the sidebar conversation Commissioner Savas and I had with the governor? Is that happening? Are we starting to have those conversations about and going into the short session?
Yes.
Okay, we are doing that.
GA is on it, yes.
Okay, good. That's it. I want to fund building 2.
No, yeah.
Did you guys hear that? Did you guys know that? Yeah.
The money tree over there. I gotta go see what he's got going on in his house.
Big old softy progressive Ben West.
So let's take a short recess. We'll have staff work on a proposed amendment there. Short recess. There we go.
We're back.
All right, we're reconvening, and Gary, I'm going to turn back to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners, for your feedback. Staff, our amazing staff here has drafted a motion that we think covers everything you've asked for. We'll post it on the screen right now for the public to read as well. The intent here, before you make this motion, is that we're really not touching any current opioid settlement funds, but rather going forward. As well, we're going to ask you to make a separate motion after this on the SHS Metro administrative funding and use all of that entirely for a shelter. Because the motion on the window here, we think covers, we can still do this without that SHS Metro specific money. So the motion shows what it says. I'll read it. So Building 1, so you would motion, construction of Building 1 of the Recovery Campus, fill the total gap of $14.726 million to be funded entirely through a loan, whether community development block grant or from a private source, with loan repayment to be made through supportive housing services dollars, our existing dollars, and opioid settlement funds, which maintains current opioid program allocations for 1 year. There are no county general funds involved in the loan repayment. That is our proposal. That's what we thought you heard, but happy for further clarifications before you make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'm ready to make the motion. I think that's what we said.
All right, any other?
Okay.
You all right with that?
I move we proceed with the construction of Building 1 of the Recovery Campus at a total gap amount of $14.726 million to be funded through a loan, whether community development block grant funds or from a private source, with loan repayment to be made through supportive housing services dollars and opioid settlement funds, while maintaining current opioid program allocations for 1 year. No county general funds are involved.
Second.
Right. So Commissioner Savas has moved to proceed with the construction of Building 1 of the Recovery Campus at a total gap amount of $14,726,000 to be funded through a loan, whether community development block grant funds or from a private source, with a loan repayment to be made through supportive housing service dollars and opioid settlement funds, while maintaining current opioid program allocations for 1 year. No county general funds involved. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Helm,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair,
Aye.
motion passes 5-0, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Gary?
Yes, thank you and congratulations. Next, if you'd move to page 13 of your script, there are 3 motions there for the Supportive Housing Services Metro Administrative Funding. I'm recommending option 2, motion 2, as we've just discussed, that you would ask Metro to use the $6.6 million for a shelter that the staff has discussed previously. It's motion 2.
Well, it says no. I would move we use SHS Metro admin funds and direct staff to proceed with the shelter proposal.
Yes, thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
I think I heard West. It was
That's
pretty
fine.
close. It's all right. All right.
We can arm wrestle over it later.
Okay. Commissioner Helm has moved to use SHS Metro admin funds for the Recovery Campus. Nope, I'm on the wrong one.
No, I crossed it out and wrote
I'm sorry.
direct staff for the shelter.
To the shelter. All right. Admin funds to be used to direct staff to proceed with the shelter proposal. It's been seconded by Commissioner West. Any further discussion?
Please repeat the motion.
Yeah. It says Commissioner Helm has moved to use SHS Metro admin funds for the shelter,
Yes,
proposal.
yes. That's it.
Is that close?
That's it.
And Commissioner West had seconded. And if there's no further discussion, I'll have the clerk call the poll.
Just clarification, looking at staff, so that gives us the flexibility we need under the prior motion to get to do both, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I'm ready.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Helm,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair,
Aye.
motion passes 5-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And then the final motions on opioid settlement, you addressed that in the main first motion, so there's no need to discuss that further. We've already given direction on that one. So you've covered everything we had hoped you would today, Commissioners.
Thank you, guys.
Oh my gosh, there's nothing else? I was looking through these pages left, so,
Except the second building, but.
yeah, and,
That's a work in progress.
Jeez. I want to thank staff, all my colleagues. This has been a tough conversation, and appreciate everybody's hard work kind of coming together to find some solutions. So with that, this concludes our final policy session in the afternoon, and we are finished for the day. Thank you.